Dr. Umar, happy to have you back, man. What you been up to, yo? It's been a while, yo, since I had you on the platform.
Yes, just taking care of business, fighting for the school, doing what I do, helping the parents with their children, raising a consciousness. The work never stops. The work never stops.
Yes, indeed, man. Had to bring you back on. The people, they've been asking me to bring you back on for the longest, man. So it was only right to bring you back on. It's so much I want to talk to you about, though, man. It's so much to get into that I want to get your take on. Nolan Wells, how you feel about that situation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nolan Wells, Nolan Wells. When the case first broke, Art, I just kind of sat back because I knew the YouTubian struggle streamers were going to run with it. I knew the white liberals on YouTube were going to run with it. I knew the white racists on YouTube were going to run with it, and everybody in between. It hurts my heart for Sister Christine, Nolan's mother, to have to see so many people using her son's name and crisis and tragedy for clickbait. And that's one of the biggest reasons, Art, I kind of stood back. It almost reminded me of the Freddie Gray police unaliving in Baltimore back during the Barack Obama era. When Freddie Gray lost his life to those police in Baltimore, everybody rushed to Baltimore. They did the same thing with Michael Brown in Ferguson, not because they necessarily cared about the tragedy, but because they wanted to benefit personally from it. And so I stayed away from Ferguson. I stayed away from Baltimore. And I stayed away from the Nolan Wells situation for a while because I didn't want to look like so many other people who just jumped in to have something to say, to use that young man's loss of life for clickbait and views. Now that it's been over a month since he lost his life, I think it's okay for me to speak now because everyone else has kind of given their opinion, their analysis, their synopsis, and their feeling on the situation. So I'm going to give mine. First of all, Nolan Wells, Javon, and I want Javon to hear this, and I want any other black person who was on Devil Horns Island that day to hear this. And I want any black person who was celebrating the 4th of July to hear this. No black person, no black freedman, no black immigrant, no member of the black race at all should have been celebrating July 4th, 2026. No one should have been celebrating America's 250th solar return. And why? Because our ancestors were still enslaved on July 4th, 1776. So why are we on White Devil Horns Island anyway, celebrating George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton and all these other white supremacists and slave masters? Why are we even celebrating them anyway? Nolan shouldn't have been out there. Javon shouldn't have been out there. No black person should have been celebrating the 4th of July, period. We would be enslaved for almost another century after America got her independence. So what are we celebrating for? To celebrate the 4th of July as an African is to celebrate the enslavement of your ancestors and the freedom of your slave masters. It makes no sense. Now, with that being said, I'm not blaming Nolan in any way, shape, form, or fashion for his loss of life. I'm just simply saying he shouldn't have been out there. Now let's take a closer look at this, Art. According to what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and what I've read, Nolan, Warren, Wyatt, and Trayston left for Horn Island the morning of July 4th. According to Warren's own words that he offered during an interview with Officer B.T. Coon, that's Coon as in C-U-N-E, Coon as in K-H-E-W-N, Coon as in K-U-H-N, Coon as in C-O-N-N. So Warren did a sit down with Officer B.T. Coon. And as we all know, B.T. Coon is white YouTube's pet monkey. He's white YouTube's pet monkey. So Warren sat down for an interview with white YouTube's pet monkey. And He said that they left for Horns Island the morning of July the 4th, and that it was approximately 30 of them spread across 3 boats. Approximately 30 youth spread across 3 boats. They all went to Horn Island together. They arrived at approximately 11:30. So they left around 9ish, 8, 9ish, whatever the case may be. They left the morning of July 4th. They arrived on White Devil's Horn Island at about 11:30. So 3 boats, 30 youth, they went together. I'm not clear on whether the 3 boats came back together or not. That's another question that I have, Art. Did they come back together the same way they left together? Because I'm treating all 30 of those white youth and all 3 of those ships as crime scenes and as suspects. All 3 ships are potential crime scenes. All 3 boats are potential crime scenes, and all 30 youth are potential suspects. I don't know why Jackson County Sheriff Ledbetter or Jackson County District Attorney Mulrath, I don't know why they decided to separate the boat that Nolan was on, Warren's boat. I don't know why they separated that boat from the other 2 for purposes of investigation and analysis, because those 3 boats operated as a team. And since they went out there as a team, and it hasn't been made clear to me whether or not they came back together as a team, all 30 white youth and all 3 boats should have been part of this investigation, not just the 1 boat. That is my first big issue with this case. Who decided to separate the other 2 boats and the other 20 or so youth? I got a problem with that, Art, because according to the Cajun Navy, they have no GPS information on the other 2 boats, Art. They have no GPS information on the other 2 boats. Now let's get into this. According to Warren and Nolan's other so-called white friends, they decided to leave the island around 4:30. So they were roughly on White Devil's Horn Island from 11:30 to 4:30. That is about 5 hours. About 5 hours. Now, one question that has to be asked, Art, why did y'all leave so soon? Because they party on Horn Island all day long. Y'all didn't leave at sunset. Y'all didn't leave at sundown. Y'all left after only being there 5 hours. That's a little suspicious, Art. And I haven't heard anybody ask any of them, why did y'all decide to leave after only being there for 5 hours? Did y'all plan to only be on White Devil's Horn Island for 5 hours? Why did y'all leave at that time? But we'll deal with that later. So then let's listen to Javon, Nolan's other best friend. Now, another problem I got with this whole story, Art, is Nolan allegedly had too many best friends. I'm trying to find out, how does Nolan have so many best friends? And why did all of these so-called best friends leave their best friend on White Devil's Horn Island without his cell phone and keys? I'm trying to figure this out. So Javon claims he's Nolan's best friend. Warren claims he's Nolan's best friend. And Trayston allegedly claims that he's Warren's best friend. So did Warren have 3 best friends? Excuse me. Did Nolan have 3 best friends? Did Nolan have 13 best friends? Did Nolan have 30 best friends? Because if Javon is the best friend of Nolan, and if Warren is the best friend of Nolan, and if Trayston is the best friend of Nolan, exactly how many best friends did Nolan have? Are y'all making this up? Who did Nolan tell Warren was his best friend? Who did Nolan ever tell Trayston was his best friend? I'm not going to question Javon, because he's a brother. And I do believe that there's a strong chance that they may have been best friends. And I say that not only because Javon is a brother, Art, but I also felt that Javon, through the investigation team and alley-oop, with some of the answers that he gave on TMZ. Some of Javon's answers, in my opinion, kind of made it clear to me he actually cared about Nolan. He actually cared about Nolan. I believe Javon actually cared about Nolan. And because of that, I'm willing to say that Javon may have actually been Nolan's best friend. I wish somebody would have asked Javon, Art, to your knowledge, has Nolan ever called Warren his best friend? Has Nolan ever called Tristan his best friend? To your knowledge, Javon, has Nolan ever told you that Warren and Tristan were best friends of his? Because, Art, I'm having a problem with this three best friend narrative. Okay? I used to be 18 years old. You might have one best friend. You may have two. Don't get me wrong. If you all hang in a pack, you could have three best friends. But according to Javon's own words, Art, he didn't really hang around with them other guys too much. That's what I allegedly thought I heard him say. He didn't hang around with them guys too much. So if you got 2 or 3 or 4 best friends, you guys normally travel as a group. Javon seemed like he kind of spent most of his time with Nolan alone, just the two of them, not with Tristan and Warren. Although he knew them, it didn't appear that he hung out with them on the regular. So how could they all then be best friends? It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying it's unlikely. So, according to Javon, Art, he saw Nolan at 3:40 on the island. According to Javon, what I heard him say to TMZ allegedly was that he had another friend who was involved in an altercation and that he left Nolan at about 3:40 to go check on his buddy, because according to Javon, his buddy was on another ship and the parents of whomever on this other ship were trying to get him off the island because he was crashing out. He never said who this friend was. He never exactly told us what happened. But he said, I left at 3:40 to go check on my friend on another boat because, quote unquote, well, these are not his words, I'm paraphrasing. He was kind of wilding out, crashing out, and he needed to help calm him down. I'm paraphrasing. He said when he got back, Nolan was nowhere to be found, and I'm paraphrasing. And Nolan's boat that he came on, Warren's boat, the so-called Big Daddy, the 22-foot Triton, had already left the scene. So according to Javon, I left Nolan at 3:40 to go deal with another situation. I came back, he was gone. According to Katie, the white girl who Nolan's white best friends are trying to use as an alibi in this situation. Okay, because they claim, and Warren said the same thing to Officer B.T. Coon when he spoke with him. They claim that Nolan told them, I'm going to hang back on this island and talk to Katie. You guys go ahead and I'll get back however I get back. Again, I'm paraphrasing. But guess what? We learned through Katie's sister that Katie said she has no knowledge of Nolan ever saying that. In fact, Katie said, Art, that Nolan told her, I got to get ready to head back to the boat because my friends are leaving soon. That don't sound like somebody who plans on staying, Art. Okay? According to her sister, Katie said Nolan told Katie, it's time for me to head back to the boat because my friends are going to be leaving soon. As far as I'm concerned, Art, Javon and Katie both threw us an alley-oop. Javon and Katie are throwing Sheriff Ledbetter of Jackson County an alley-oop because neither one of them are corroborating the story of Nolan's white friends on that boat. In fact, Javon said, this ain't adding up. Javon said, it's not like Nolan to say, you guys go ahead and leave me on this island and I'm just going to stay back to talk to this girl who I barely know. According to Javon, it don't make no sense. Javon ain't stupid, Art. That's his friend. He know damn well Nolan didn't tell them that he was going to stay back on that ship. And then Katie, I'm going to give a little bit of respect to Katie on this situation. Because as a white girl, Art, for her to come out and say that is not what happened, for her to come out and say that Nolan told me I got to get back to the boat because my friends are leaving, for her to say that, Art, that took a little bit of courage and honesty. That took a little bit of integrity. That, don't get me wrong, I don't want to give her too much credit because she is trying to clear her name. What Katie is basically doing, Art, is she's saying, listen, y'all did whatever y'all did to Nolan, but you're not going to add me to the narrative. I'm not serving as nobody's alibi. I'm not helping nobody get out of this situation. You're not going to use me as a decoy, but I still appreciate Katie speaking up for Nolan, Art, because she didn't have to do it. Although she's trying to protect herself and stay out of the investigation, I appreciate Katie for letting the world know Nolan told me I got to head back to the boat because my friends are getting ready to leave. Now, according to Katie, Art, she spoke to Nolan sometime between 3 and 4:30. Now, her window appears to be wider than everybody else's window. So Javon's window is much smaller. He said, I saw him at 3:40, went to deal with another situation. By the time I came back, they were gone. Katie said, I spoke with him between 3 and 4:30. And I allege, Art, one of the reasons that Katie is making her window so wide is she trying to leave a little bit of wiggle room for Warren and them to get their story straight, allegedly. I think Katie trying to leave a little bit of wiggle room for Warren and them to get their story straight, Art. Now, according to our sister Christine, and my heart goes out to Sister Christine, Nolan's mother. My heart deeply, deeply goes out to you, Queen. According to Christine, Art, she heard from a coach who ran into Nolan on the island as well. And according to the coach, he spoke to Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30. So Javon didn't see him after 3:40. The coach spoke to him sometime between 2:30 and 3:30. And Katie said her conversation with Nolan was between 3 and 4:30. So you know what that means, Art? We can pretty much digest, conclude that Nolan was likely to have been unalived, Art, sometime within the hour of 3:30 to 4:30. I'm going to insinuate that Nolan's life was taken because I do not believe he accidentally drowned. If he drowned, he was forcibly drowned. And we'll get to that in a minute. If Nolan drowned, he was forcibly drowned. He did not accidentally drown. He was a great swimmer. Miss me with the nonsense. That boy did not drown. If he drowned, it was by force. So again, Art, all three of these people, arguably the last three to see him alive, except for those who took his life, Katie, the coach, and Javon, are arguably the last three people to see Nolan alive, except for those who took his life on that boat, allegedly. That's my position. So they're all basically cutting off around 3:30, Art. Remember, they made the call for the emergency sea tow at 4 o'clock. Javon said he cut out 3:40. The coach, 3:30. They made the call at 4 o'clock. That conversation we heard, the sea tow call, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that took place at 4. It sounded like there was some struggling going on in the background. Nolan could have been getting unalived while they were making the call, Art. Nolan could have been getting unalived while they were making the call. Nolan could have been getting choked out while they was on the phone with Cito. So again, Art, My position is Nolan lost his life somewhere within the hour of 3:30 to 4:30. Now, before we go any further, Art, I need Ben Crump, investigation team, and Sheriff Ledbetter's investigation team to have a conversation with Javon, because according to Javon's statements on TMZ, the police never spoke to him. And I have serious concerns with the manner in which this investigation has been carried out so far, Art. I have very serious concerns with the manner in which this investigation has been carried out so far. So anyway, Javon said police never spoke with him. Why? We need a conversation with Javon, not because I think he's a suspect. I believe Javon is innocent, but we need to find out what he knows. That's number one. We also need a conversation, Art, with the coach. Who is this coach that Sister Christine said contacted her and told her he had a conversation with Nolan on the island between 2:30 and 3:30? We need to find out what he knows. And according to Katie's sister, she is already cooperating with the authorities. But here's why those three got to be spoken to, Art. Not only so we find out what they know, Art, but did they see each other during their conversation with Nolan? Because Javon, if you was talking to Nolan and left him at 3:40, and if Katie was talking to Nolan sometime between 3 and 4:30, and if the coach was talking to Nolan between 3:30 and 4:30, Art, at least two of you should have ran into each other. Did the coach see Javon? Did Javon see the coach? Did the coach see Katie? Did Katie see the coach? Did Katie see Javon? Did the coach see Katie? Art, if all three of them are saying they saw Nolan for the last time, roughly within the same hour, hour and a half, Art, did y'all run into each other? Let me tell you why I'm asking this question, Art. And I'm not throwing no shade at my brother Javon. I like Javon. I'm not throwing no shade at Miss Katie McCormick. I don't know her. I'm not throwing no shade at the coach, Art. But the reason I need to know why all y'all put y'all time within the same frame and you may have not possibly seen one another, Art, are you guys keeping yourself out of the window of witnessing this crime by saying you didn't see him after 3:30? I want you to follow what I'm saying here, Art. It's kind of interesting that they all saw him last at 3:30, not after 3:30. Javon 3:40, roughly 3:30. My point is, Art, for all three of them to have the same exact time, if they did not see each other at all during these conversations with Nolan, are they pushing up the window of time during which they saw Nolan so they cannot be included in this investigation as a witness to a crime? In other words, Art, I don't think Javon had nothing to do with it. I know he didn't. But is he saying he saw Nolan a little earlier than he saw him so he can't be pulled into the investigation? I don't think Katie had nothing to do with the crime, but is Katie putting her conversation with Nolan a little earlier than it actually took place to make sure she can't be dragged into the investigation as a witness to a crime? Is it possible that the coach is putting his conversation with Nolan earlier than what it was, Art, to make sure he cannot get dragged into the investigation? I don't think they had anything to do with it, but they could have been a witness to a homicide, Art. They could have been witness to a homicide. If they did not see each other, if none of those three people, the coach, Javon, and Katie, if they did not see each other at all talking to Nolan, if none of them saw each other talking to Nolan, at least two of them are lying about the time they last saw Nolan. Are you following me, Art? All I'm saying is I have my suspicions as to whether or not this convenient 3:30 cutoff window, I have my suspicions that this convenient 3:30 cutoff window may have not actually been the time they saw Nolan. They may have saw Nolan closer to the time he lost his life. Now, stay with me, Art. I want to back up for a minute. And I want to say this to Brother Elmore, Nolan's stepfather. And I want to say this to Coach Tracy, who I believe was one of Nolan's coaches. Brother Elmore, the stepfather, and Coach Tracy, the coach, both said on national television, Art, that they don't think race played a role in this at all. Elmore, Tracy, two dark-skinned black men in Mississippi, and both of them said on national television, I don't think race had anything to do with this case. I am disappointed in Brother Elmore. I am disappointed in Coach Tracy. How dare you help these young people avoid the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. federal hate crimes law, Art, by you saying you don't think this had anything to do with race, Brother Elmore and Coach Tracy. You are helping these white folks avoid federal hate crimes charges. And let me tell you why this is important, Art. Let me tell you why this is important. Under the federal hate crimes law, Matthew Shepard, James Byrd, signed by Barack Obama, 2009. Under the Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, you can go to jail for life. You can go to jail for life under the Federal Hate Crimes Law. So if you can go to jail for life under the Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, why is Nolan's stepfather and coach telling white folks they don't think it had anything to do with race? I still love my brother Elmore. I still love my brother Coach Tracy. But would y'all please watch what comes out of your mouth during this investigation? Because you are undermining justice for Nolan. I hope you're listening, Brother Elmore. And I hope you're listening, Coach Tracy. You are undermining justice for Nolan by saying you don't think race had anything to do with it. How in the hell do you know? How do you know if race had anything to do with it? How well do you know these young people? It was 30 of them, Art. It was damn near 30 white youth spread across 3 boats. How many of them did Elmore know? How many of them did Coach Tracy know? So how are you going to go on TV and say, I don't think it had anything to do with race? Why are you helping them avoid accountability for what they may have done? I don't know if they did it, Art. You don't know if they did it. They don't know if they did it. And they definitely don't know if it was motivated by race. What they should have said, Art, is what Javon said. And that's why I like the young brother Javon. That's why I like that young brother Javon. His mother, Sister Tashima, shout out to you. You raised a good kid. When TMZ asked Javon if he thought it had anything to do with race, Art, when TMZ asked Javon if he thought this had anything to do with race, he said, what? I don't want to answer that question. I don't want to answer that question. Perfect answer. Perfect answer. Or, Art, they could have said, I don't know. Nolan's stepfather could have said, I don't know if it had anything to do with race. Coach Tracy should have said, I don't know if it had anything to do with race. But to say you don't think it had to do with race when he was the only black boy across 3 ships, are you out of your mind? Why would you say that and help them avoid the Federal Hate Crimes Act? Javon gave a better answer than those 2 black men. Javon, a child, gave a better answer than those 2 black men, Art, when he said, I don't want to answer the question. And shout out to Javon, Art. He's intelligent. You know why? Because by saying, I don't want to answer the question, he answered the question. Of course, race has something to do with it. This is the United States of America. Race has something to do with everything involving black people. The country was built on the backs of black people. It's maintained on black people. We are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system, overrepresented in the unemployment line, under the poverty line. Of course, everything in this country has to do with race. And I'm disappointed in us, Art, that we are so afraid to call racism what it is, that we literally got people asking us, when a white person takes the life of a black person, do you think it had anything to do with race? When a police officer takes the life or shoots a black person, do you think it had anything to do? What kind of idiotic gaslighting question is this, Art? All white people are racist. All white people are racist. So we can stop asking if it had anything to do with race. If it's black and it's white, it has something to do with race because all white people are racist. That's just how it is. Now let's get back to this. Let's get back to this. Before we deal with the infamous Cito call, Art, I got a few questions for Warren. I want to deal with that infamous Cito call, Art, and I want to deal with Sister Tashima and Sister Christine's visit to Warren's home to get Nolan's cell phone. I want to deal with them two in a minute, but before I go there, I got a couple questions for Warren and his white friends. Nolan's best friend, and Warren even called Nolan his brother, Art. He even called him his brother. He said they spent the night together before they went out to White Devil's Horn Island, Art. The night before, July 3rd, they stayed in the same home. How do you stay in the same home with somebody, Art, and leave them on an island? How do you sleep in the same house with somebody July 3rd and then leave them on an island July 4th? But I got a few questions for Warren. No disrespect. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty, but I got a few questions for you, Warren. Since you could sit down and interview with Officer B.T. I need you to sit down and interview with Dr. Umar Ifatunde. So you can sit down and interview with Officer B.T. I want you to sit down and interview with Dr. Umar Ifatunde. My first question to Warren, you said that Nolan is a best friend of yours, that he's like a brother. I have a question. If Nolan is your brother and best friend, why did you leave him on that island, especially when you all were drinking? Because somebody put a report out there, Art, that Nolan had been drinking heavily and was intoxicated. Of course, that allegation was dismissed because the coach who contacted Sister Christine confirmed that he spoke to Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30 and Nolan was not intoxicated. So they lied to protect their friends because white people are always on code, Art. Not a single white person on that island dropped a dime yet. Not one of them. So anyway, Art, they tried to blame it on him being drunk. So he was just a drunk black kid who walked into the water and drowned. That's the narrative they wanted us to swallow. He was just a drunk black kid who walked into the water and drowned. And remember, Art, Sheriff Ledbetter allegedly ruled the case an accidental drowning before he did any investigation. He ruled Nolan's death an accidental drowning before he did any investigation. As far as I'm concerned, that meets the definition of public corruption. As far as I'm concerned, that meets the definition of public corruption. But stand with Warren, Art. Warren, if Nolan is your brother and best friend, why did you leave him on an island without his cell phone and his keys? Why did you take his cell phone and keys back to the mainland? You left him there and took his cell phone and keys back. Can you please explain that to me? What person wants to be on an island without their phone? Help me understand that, Warren. I don't know of an 18-year-old who wants to be anywhere without their phone, Art. They don't want to be in school without their phone. They don't want to be at home without their phone. They don't want to be out of town without their phone. They don't want to be at the mall, the movies, the restaurant. They don't want to be nowhere without their phone, let alone on an island with no way to get off. You left your best friend on an island, your so-called brother. You left him on an island with no way to get off, and you took his phone and his keys. Can you explain that to me, Warren? While you're thinking about it, I got another question for you, Warren, while you're thinking about it. You said at 11 o'clock, you called Miss Christine to see if she heard from her son. Warren said, Art, I called Miss Christine to see if she heard from Nolan. She said she had not heard from Nolan. Can I ask you a question, Warren? If you took his phone, how in the hell was his mother supposed to hear from her son when you have the son's phone? Did you tell Miss Christine that you had her son's phone when you called her? I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't. Think about that, Art. He called the mother and asked her if she heard from her son. But he knows she didn't hear from her son, Art, because he has her son's phone. How can the mother hear from Nolan when you have Nolan's cell phone and you left him on an island? And I bet you didn't tell her you had his phone. Because if she knew you had his phone, Art, she would not have had to use Life 360 to find the phone. If you had his phone and you called her at 11 o'clock to see if Nolan was okay, why didn't you tell Nolan's mom you had his phone? Why did my sister Christine and my sister Tashima have to use Life 360 to find their son's phone? Because you playing games. You playing games. You playing in our face like we stupid. That's what this is. I don't know if he did it, Art, but he damn sure knows who do. I allege and I believe that all 30 of those white kids on all 3 of them boats know exactly which one of them did it, and the rest of them are covering it up. And guess what, Warren? And the rest of you 30 white kids on those 3 boats, let me explain something to you. Federal hate crimes law, you can go to jail for the rest of your life in case nobody didn't tell you. Federal hate crimes law, you can go to jail for the rest of your life in case nobody told you. Guess what? The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, you can go to jail for up to 30 years. And if Nolan was unalived by more than one person, that constitutes a lynching. That constitutes a lynching. So you can go to jail for up to 30 on the Emmett Till Act. You can go to jail for life on the Matthew Shepard James Byrd Hate Crimes Act. And in the state of Mississippi, Art, if you are an accessory after the fact, not accomplice. Accomplice means you participated in the murder. Accessory means you helped cover it up afterwards. If you are an accessory to the fact after the fact, Art, you can go to jail for up to 20 years, Mississippi law. So they can go to jail for up to 20 years, Mississippi law. Accessory after the fact, you helped to cover up the crime. You can go to jail for 30 years on the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act because more than one of you probably participated in Nolan's unaliving. And under the Matthew Shepard James Byrd Federal Hate Crimes Act, Art, they can go to jail for life. And this is why I need Nolan's step pop and coach to watch what comes out of their mouth and stop trying to help these white kids avoid accountability for what they did to Nolan. Because if the tables will turn, white folks are not going to try to help your child avoid any accountability. So stop the now. Another question I have for Warren. You said you and Nolan been friends since 8th grade. Since 8th grade, Art. But Sister Christine says she don't know none of them kids really, Art. She don't know them white kids. So help me understand how you are Nolan's best friend, friends since 8th grade. You called him your brother. Y'all spent the night together July the 3rd, the morning before y'all went to White Devil's Horn Island. And his mother don't even know who you are. And you said out your own mouth that y'all never hung out at Nolan's house. So how are y'all best friends? I had best friends growing up, Art. My mother knew who they were. Who has a best friend that they mom don't know about? Help me understand that. A best friend and the mom don't know him? It sounds suspicious. Why didn't you tell Miss Christine you had her son's cell phone when you called and asked if she heard from him? Art, as far as I'm concerned, there's probable cause he has something to do with this. Art, I'm holding her son's cell phone. I left him on the island. I took his keys and phone. And I'm on the phone with the mom. I got his phone. But I'm calling his mother at 11 o'clock. Have you heard from your son? And I'm holding her son's cell phone and I don't even tell her. Art, this ain't making no sense. This ain't making no sense. And I want to know from Sheriff John Ledbetter, Art, Jackson County Sheriff, you don't have probable cause just off of that alone? Somebody calls somebody's mom asking if she heard from him while they have their phone and left him stranded on the island. And if you care so much about Nolan, Art, if he cares so much about Nolan, the so-called white best friend, Art, why did you wait till 11 o'clock? Y'all left the island 4:30. Y'all left the island 4:30. If you care so much about Nolan, why are you not calling his mother until 11 o'clock? It's pitch black outside at 11 o'clock, Art. It's pitch black. It's almost midnight, and you wait till 11 o'clock to call his mom and ask her if she heard from her son, but he's supposed to be your brother and best friend. Listen here, Warren. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And then I have a question for his dad too, Art. I don't know if you know this, but his dad has started an online fundraising platform for Warren and two of his friends. I think they raised $160,000 so far. $160,000. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has received a warrant. Nobody has been indicted. Nobody has been charged. Art, if you are innocent, why are you raising money online? You ain't been charged with a crime at all. The state of Mississippi is doing everything they can to make sure y'all don't get charged with anything. So why are you raising money online? Why did y'all cancel your social media? Why are y'all lawyering up? They hired Donald Trump's lawyer, Art. One of Donald Trump's lawyers is now the three of their lawyers. If you innocent, what you need Donald Trump's lawyer for? If you're innocent, what you raising $160,000 for? It sounds like y'all getting ready to defend yourselves. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like y'all think the truth is going to get out really, really soon, and y'all want to be prepared for it. Again, Art, I'm not saying he did it, but I definitely believe he knows who do. Now, we're going to get to this call. But before we get to this call, Art, I'm going to ask a question to Benjamin Crump. Attorney Benjamin Crump. I met him twice, Art. I met Benjamin Crump the day before I graduated with my doctorate at an Urban League conference in New Orleans. I presented at a workshop at the Urban League conference in New Orleans. This is July of 2012. And I flew back to graduate and get my doctorate in clinical psychology. We had lunch. It's a few of us at the table. We had lunch. Okay. This is around the Trayvon era. And then I met Benjamin Crump again at HBCU Delaware State University about 3 or 4 years ago at the Black Farmers Conference that was put on by one of the black professors there. She invited me to keynote the luncheon, and she switched me out at the last minute for Attorney Benjamin Crump. I understand it was a black bourgeoisie event. I'm not a member of the black bourgeoisie. I got switched out. I understand. No harm, no foul. Ben Crump gave a good speech. But here's my question to Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton. Art. How long are y'all going to wait around before y'all call a spade a spade? How long is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton going to wait around, Art, before they tell the world that they don't think this investigation is being done correctly? How long before Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton demand that the FBI and Department of Justice take over this investigation? Art, it's been over a month and we know nothing. It's been over a month and we know nothing. Now, let me say this, Art. There's several circumstances through which you can demand the FBI come in and take over an investigation. One of them, Art, if there is a suspicion of public corruption or obstruction of justice. The FBI, the Department of Justice, can come in and take over a case on the suspicion of public corruption or obstruction of justice. So you're going to say, Dr. Umar, what evidence do you have of that? First of all, they declared this an accidental drowning before they did any investigation. That's a cover-up. Not only that, Art, they never treated the boat like a crime scene. They never took a look at the other two boats. We have no information at all on the other two boats. Those 30 white kids should have had their cell phones confiscated, investigated. All their social media should have been investigated. Their homes should have been investigated. They should have all been interrogated. They should have been investigated to see if they or their parents had any connection to any of the white hate groups in the state of Mississippi. None of that was done. They gave the boat back to the owner, Art. They gave the boat back. The boat may have been a crime scene, and they gave it back. Now, according to the Cajun Navy, another question for Ben Crump, Art. According to the Cajun Navy, they offered Ben Crump to put dogs on the boat and let the dogs sniff it out to see if anybody had recently been deceased on that boat or if there had been any blood on that boat. And according to the representative from the Cajun Navy, Ben Crump told him don't do it. So I need Ben Crump, respectfully, I'm not accusing him of nothing, Art, but I need Ben Crump to explain to me why you didn't let them use the dogs to sniff out that boat. Why did you not let them sniff out that boat with them dogs? Did you have your own dogs to sniff out the boat? Because if you didn't, why didn't you let them sniff the boat out with the dogs? The dogs can tell, Art, if somebody had recently lost their life or if blood had been spilled. He said Ben Crump told him no. I need Ben Crump to explain that. I need Sheriff John Ledbetter to explain why the boat wasn't treated as a crime scene, potential crime scene. I need him to explain why all them white kids wasn't arrested and questioned, because if it was black kids and a white kid went missing, Art, they would have all been arrested and questioned. You know that. They would have all been arrested and questioned. And then let's talk about the autopsy, Art. Let's talk about the autopsy. So the Mississippi State Medical Examiner, they do their autopsy July 7th, right? July 7th. And then Nolan's mother requested an independent autopsy, as she should have. They send Nolan's body to Washington, D.C. When the black medical examiner gets the Nolan's corpse, Art, the throat tissue and the lung tissue is gone. How is he supposed to determine if Nolan died from being choked out or if Nolan died from drowning if he don't have the throat tissue or the lung tissue, Art? How is he supposed to do his job and y'all didn't send the throat tissue or the lung tissue? And nobody has explained yet whether or not the medical examiner in D.C. is ever going to get the throat tissue or the lung tissue. And I personally believe, Art, I personally believe Nolan was deceased before he hit the water. I believe Nolan was deceased before he hit the water. And the reason they held on to the throat tissue and the reason they held on to the lung tissue is they didn't want nobody to know that Nolan was murdered before he hit that water. Just like Emmett Till was murdered before he hit that water. Just like Dr. King's brother, A.D. King, was murdered before he hit that water. Remember, Art, when Dr. King's brother was murdered, Reverend A.D. King, they found him in a swimming pool. They ruled it a drowning. And then one of the paramedics said what, Art? One of the paramedics who took Dr. King's brother out the pool, Art, said he didn't have no water in his lungs. The paramedic said he didn't have no water in his lungs, Art. And plus, A.D. King, just like Nolan, A.D. King, just like Nolan, was a great swimmer, Art. Was a great swimmer. They kept them lungs, I believe. They kept the lungs, Art, because they knew that those lungs would have provided evidence of the fact that Nolan may have been deceased before he hit that water. They kept the throat because it may have shown some trauma that Nolan may have gotten choked out. And then you got the red substance around the back of the head that the DC medical examiner discussed. We don't know if Nolan got hit in the back of the head. We don't know if the blood simply drained to the back of the head. But here's the thing, Art. They say Nolan was found face down in the water. Nolan was found face down in the water, Art. Not only that, Nolan was transported face down to Washington, D.C. So guess what, Art? I have my doubts as to whether or not the red, which is probably blood in the back of the head, the subcutaneous red area, Art, I don't think that has anything to do with the blood draining to the back. You want to know why? Because he was found floating on his face, and he was sent to Washington, D.C. on his face. So the blood couldn't have went backwards, Art. I believe Nolan got hit in the back of the head, and it was that hit that cost him his life. It was that hit that cost him his life. It was that hit that cost him his life. Now, with that being said, Art, I want to go to Sister Tashima and Sister Christine going over to Warren's home, allegedly, to get Nolan's phone. So Sister Christine reported Nolan missing around 12:22 p.m. on the 4th. Sometime after that, her and Sister Tashima, Javon's mom, used Life 360, Art, and they tracked the phone to Warren's home. I believe it was Warren's home. Don't hold me to that. I believe it was, no, I think it was one over the friend's home, lady friend's home. I think Warren said they were swimming at a lady friend's home. Whoever house it was one of them kids who was out there on White Devil Horns Island. So they tracked the phone to this house, Art. And Sister Tashima said when they opened up the door, the house was dark. You know why the house was dark, Art? They turned the lights off so they wouldn't recognize nobody's face. When they saw Nolan's mom is outside, this is what I believe happened. This is what I'm going to let. Nolan's mother and Javon's mother are outside. How did they know where we are? Turn the lights off because they are not going to leave until we open this door. They turned the lights off, Art, so they could hide. They didn't know that Nolan had Life 360 on that phone. They didn't know that Nolan had Life 360. Now, Sister Tashima said, Art, it took them 15 minutes to bring the phone. Art, she said it took them 15 minutes. You know why? Because they was deleting his Snapchat accounts. That's why, Art. It took them 15 minutes to bring the phone because they were deleting Nolan's Snapchat account. And they also needed to make sure they had their story straight in case Sister Christine and Sister Tashima had any more questions, Art. That's what was going on. But let me say this to Sister Christine and Sister Tashima. My beautiful African sisters, don't you ever again in your life go to a home at that time of night by yourself without no men. Brother Elmore should have been with y'all. You are in Mississippi. You don't know who would have been in that house. You don't know what type of racist rednecks could have came out there and attacked you guys, and y'all could have ended up missing just like Nolan. And once again, they would have said they never saw y'all. And once again, they would have said that they never saw y'all. So please don't do that again. I know you was looking for your son. I know you was helping your girlfriend look for her son. But don't y'all ever pull up at no white people's house you don't know after midnight. Don't you do that no more, ladies. Bring a couple alpha males with you. Bring Brother Elmore with you next time. But this is what I wish they would have done, Art. Let me tell you what I wish they would have done. When Sister Tashima and Sister Christine got to that house, Art, I wish they would not have told them they knew the phone was in there. Stay with me, Art. I wish they would have not told them they knew the phone. They should have played it off, Art. They should have said, we want to know if anybody has seen Nolan. We haven't heard from him since he went with y'all to White Devil's Horn Island. And they would have said, we ain't heard from him, Art. And then I would have said, do you know if Nolan had his phone with him? I've been calling my son all day. He's not picking up. Do you know if he had his phone? And if they would have said no, Art, if they would have said, we don't know if he had his phone or not, you know what I would have done? I would have called the police and I would have told the police, Art, my son is missing. He went to White Devil's Horn Island with these white kids in his house. They have his phone. They don't know I know they have his phone. And they just lied to my face and told me that they don't know where the phone is, and the phone is right in there with them. I believe that they are suspects in my son's disappearance, and I want them all arrested. That's what I wish they would have done, Art. I wish they didn't tell them they knew the phone was in there. I wish they would have act like they didn't know if the phone was in there and just asked them if they saw the phone. And once those white kids lied, I would have called the police because they never thought anybody was coming for Nolan's phone and keys. They never thought anyone was coming for Nolan's phone and keys because they didn't know Sister Christine had Life 360 on that phone, Art. They did not know that. And I think it is so disrespectful, Art, so racist and so bigoted that white people are filing false reports on Sister Christine's nursing license, Art. She now got to go before the nursing board in Mississippi, Art. Nolan's mother, still grieving the death of her son, she got to go and defend her credentials because white folks are mad that she's demanding justice for her son. This sounds just like Mamie Till Mobley, Emmett Till's mother. They did the same thing to Emmett Till, Art. After they assassinated Emmett Till, they harassed his mother. They sent her all type of threatening phone calls, letters, notices. Here we are, Art. 61 years later, they doing the same thing to Nolan Wells' mom. For black people who think white people have changed, Art, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. They are their ancestors, Art. They are their ancestors. They might be worse. They are their ancestors. And since they are their ancestors, we need to be our ancestors. Now, let's talk about the infamous Cito call, Art. So again, Javon sees Nolan at 3:40. The coach sees Nolan between 2:30 and 3:30. Katie sees Nolan between 3 and 4:30. I already told you I believe Nolan was unalived between 3:30 and 4:30. Now, our sister, what was her name? Jacqueline Brentley or something. Jeanette Brentley, Jacqueline Brentley. Forgive me, sister, for mispronouncing your name. But our sister, who is an audio engineer, Art, she went through the laborious process of cleaning up the background conversation during the infamous Cito call. She cleaned up the background audio during the infamous Cito call, Art. And during the infamous Cito call, Art, according to her cleanup, it sounds like they were trying to clean up an unaliving of Nolan Wells. You hear people saying things like, is he still alive? Did you unalive him? Is he okay? People are shocked, asking questions. Is he still breathing? If that tape gets corroborated, all the white young folks on those 3 boats need to go to jail, Art. They need to be charged, all of them. Whether you committed the crime, whether you was an accomplice to the crime, whether you was an accessory to the crime. Whether you committed the crime, first-degree murder, whether you was an accomplice to the crime, you helped them carry it out, whether you was an accessory to the crime, you helped them plan it, or you helped them cover it up, Art, because I'm having problems. I'm having problems with this investigation. It is too lax. It is too soft. And my question to Ben Crump and Al Sharpton, how long before y'all going to demand that the federal Department of Justice take over the investigation, Art? As I was saying earlier, you can demand the feds to take over the investigation, Art, if there is concern about public corruption and obstruction of justice. One of the boys mom or stepmom, and I think it's Warren, allegedly. One of the boys' mothers or stepmothers is a chancery court judge. Another one of the children's parents is allegedly tied to the FBI. So, Art, if their parents are tied up in the Mississippi state power structure, if these children's parents are tied up in the Mississippi state power structure, you know damn well Mississippi is not trying to find any of those kids guilty of anything. You know that. Mississippi does not have a history of helping black people find justice against white people. That is not the history of Mississippi. It ain't the history of Arkansas. It ain't the history of Texas. It ain't the history of Louisiana. It ain't the history of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, or none of those states. So why is it Ben Crump and Al Sharpton calling for a federal investigation? That's number one. Number two, Art, guess what? Horns Island is federal land. Horns Island is federal land, Art. If Horns Island is federal land, Art, why are we not demanding that the feds do the investigation and not Sheriff Ledbetter? The island is federal land, Art. It's federal land. Why aren't the feds carrying out the investigation? That's the second reason they should be involved. The third reason they should be involved, Art, is there's a strong likelihood that this was a federal hate crime and a lynching. Very strong likelihood that this was Nolan Wells' death is very likely to have been a federal hate crime, and it is very likely to have been a federal lynching, meaning more than one person participated in the racially motivated crime. So I just gave you three reasons why the feds should be investigating this case and not the sheriff's office. Why is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton dragging their feet? Benjamin Crump, you need to have a street march. You need to bring all of the black militia groups to Mississippi, and we need to march on Mississippi. Your approach to this investigation is too humble. It is too docile. It is too meek. It is too soft. You are dealing with Mississippi, and you have not activated any street protests. Sister Christine and Brother Nolan are not going to get justice, Art. Sister Christine and Brother Nolan Wells are not going to get justice, Art, if Benjamin Crump doesn't activate a street activism campaign. It is time for Ben Crump and Al Sharpton to activate a street activism campaign. And let me say this, Art. Al Sharpton is about to have another march on Washington. For what? For what? He's going to commemorate the Dr. King 1963 March on Washington. He's been doing it almost every year. But Art, it's an empty symbol. Al Sharpton, listen to me, sir. You don't need to march on D.C. We don't need another empty, meaningless Democratic Party-sponsored march in Washington, D.C. We need you to switch that march, Art. Al Sharpton, if he cares about justice for Black Mississippi, if Al Sharpton cares about justice for Black Mississippi, Art, he will switch the march from D.C. to Mississippi. Al Sharpton needs to switch the march from Washington, D.C. to Mississippi. And it should be 4 days, Art. It should be 4 days, Art. We should march in Senatobia, Mississippi one day for baby Cohen, who was shot and murdered by the police in the Walmart parking lot. We got to march for baby Cohen, who was shot by the police in Senatobia. We have to march in Cleveland, Mississippi for our brother Trey Reed, who was unalived September 15th, 2025, hanging from a tree on Delta State University campus in Cleveland, Mississippi, September 15th, 2025. So we need to march in Cleveland, Mississippi. We need to march in Senatobia, Mississippi. We need to march in Jackson, Mississippi, because what just happened in Jackson on Monday, Art? A Black woman, 28, 29 years old, Tasia Fortune, was found hanging from a tree. Monday, Art, 4 days ago, a Black woman was found hanging from a tree in Jackson, Mississippi. And check this out, Art. They said her corpse, her body, had been hanging from the tree for 3 to 4 days, Art. 3 to 4 days, her body was hanging. It gets worse, Art. It gets worse. They said they had to use a ladder. They had to use a ladder to go up on the tree and get our sister Tasia down. And guess what the Mississippi State Medical Examiner ruled it, Art? Guess what she ruled it? The same thing she ruled Trey Reed's death as: suicide. Let me ask you a question, Art. How many black people you know hang themselves from trees? I don't know no black person who have ever taken their life by hanging themselves from a tree. In fact, it's almost impossible to hang yourself from a tree. In fact, black people have been hung from trees by white people for over 200 years. So you mean to tell me the very method that has been used to take our lives at the hands of white people, we are now taking the method ourselves, Art? We are now taking the method ourselves, Art, and we're going to hang ourselves with a noose the same way white people used to hang our ancestors? Who does that make sense to? That don't make no damn sense. So now all of a sudden, when black people want to take their life, we're going to go outside, get a noose, and hang ourselves suspended from a tree. That's nonsense. In the Mississippi State Medical Examiner, Art, every time a black person is found hanging in Mississippi, she wants to rule it a suicide. You know why, Art? If you rule it a suicide, you don't have to investigate. If you rule it a suicide, you can close the case and you don't have to investigate. So Ben Crump and Al Sharpton need to turn up the heat under Sheriff Ledbetter's office. They need to turn up the heat under District Attorney Mulrath's office because they are dragging their feet. They are not taking this investigation seriously. It is too quiet. We don't know anything. Sister Christine don't know anything after 30 days, and Ben Crump and Al Sharpton need to go to the streets. Since you like to march every year in Washington, D.C., Al Sharpton, why don't you bring your behind to Mississippi and march? We need to march in Senatobia. We need to march in Cleveland, Mississippi. We need to march in Jackson for Sister Tasia Fortune. And we need to march in Ocean Springs for Brother Nolan Wells. And check this out, Art. The Attorney General said they're going to keep the toxicology and the autopsy report under seal. They're going to keep the toxicology and the autopsy under seal, Art, until the grand jury gets to see it. A grand jury is going to decide whether or not anybody's going to get charged with a crime, Art. And I have a big problem with that, Art. That's what happened with Carmelo Anthony. That's what happened with Carmelo Anthony. A grand jury proceeding is a relatively secret process, Art. You don't even know who's on the grand jury, Art. You don't even know who's a group of secret white people. A group of secret white people are going to decide if any of those 30 white kids on those 3 boats should be charged with a crime in the death of Nolan Wells. And we won't even know who they are, and we won't even know how they came to their decision, Art. We won't even know who the grand jury is, and we won't even know how the grand jury came to their decision. What is Ben Crump ready to do? What is Al Sharpton ready to do if the grand jury returns no indictments on anybody at all for the death of Nolan Wells? Will Benjamin Crump be ready to march then, Art? Will Al Sharpton be ready to march in Mississippi then? If the grand jury says this was an accidental drowning, case is closed, no indictments, what is Ben Crump and Al Sharpton going to do? Because right now, and I respect them both, Art, but right now, the way this case is being handled, they are too docile, they are too meek, they are too humble, and they are too soft. We need some street action. We need some street protests. We need some street marches. We need to raise up the temperature in Mississippi, Art. That's what we need to do. This is the state that unalived Medgar Evers. This is the state that lynched Emmett Till. This is the state that took the life of baby Cohen. This is the state that lynched Tasia Fortune. This is the state that lynched Trey Reed. This is Mississippi, the state that tried to lynch Fannie Lou Hamer. The state that tried to lynch Ida B. Wells. When are we going to wake up and smell the coffee? Now, let's get to the infamous call, Art, and I'm going to wrap this up. Let me get to the infamous call, and I'm going to wrap this up. They called the Cito company at 4 o'clock. We already talked about the background noise that the audio engineer, our beautiful black sister, Jeanette Brentley, cleaned up. Sounds very suspicious, Art. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call. It sounds like they may have been in the act of unaliving Nolan Wells when they made the call, Art. Allegedly. And guess what, Art? That would make perfect sense. You want to know why? Because the call was bogus. Nothing was wrong with that shit. This is my allegations. This is my belief and my allegations, and I'm standing on it. Nothing was wrong with the boat, Art, and I'm going to explain to you how we know this. Nothing was wrong with that boat. They made that call because they needed an alibi, Art. They needed an alibi. So if Nolan Wells, when Nolan's body was found, Art, if they were able to determine the time of death, when Nolan's body was found, and if they were able to determine the time of death, they say, wait a minute. Nolan was unalived at 4 o'clock. Guess what, Art? They could say our boat was sinking at 4 o'clock and we was on the phone with Cito. The phone call was an alibi, Art. The phone call was a decoy. The phone call was a bait and switch. There was nothing wrong with that boat, Art. So listen, we know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers they can find, Art. We know that Mississippi is going to find all the audio engineers that they can find, Art, to try to say that the background noise cannot be corroborated or verified. You know they're going to say that. They're going to say we can't use the background noise. It's too much going on. We don't care what Sister Jeanette Brantley had to say. We don't care what y'all conspiracy theorists got to say. We had our own FBI audio engineers listen to it, and they can't make out the conversation. I believe it says what Sister Jeanette Brantley says it says. I believe it, Art. It makes perfect sense. They called at the time that they were unaliving him to have an alibi and an excuse. But guess what, Art? Even if they throw out the background noise, I believe we still have probable cause to arrest all 30 of those white kids. And I'm going to tell you why, Art. Let's listen to the conversation, Art. Let's listen to the conversation. He calls the operator on Cito. The operator says, how can I help you? And I'm paraphrasing. He says, our boat is sinking and we need a tow. She says, how much water are you in? He says, we're in 17 feet of water. No. We in 31 feet of water. Art, there's a big difference between 17 and 31. There's a big difference between 17 and 31. Why don't you know if you are in roughly 17 feet of water? And why don't you know if you are in roughly 31 feet of water? You are on the boat all the time. This is what they do, Art. They boat all the time. They go to Horn Island all the time. Why don't you know if you're in 17 foot of water or 31 foot of water? 31 foot of water. But Art, it gets better than this, Art. It gets better. The Cito operator, Art, says, do you want me to call the Coast Guard? Do you want me to call the Coast Guard? Guess what he said? We don't need the Coast Guard. Art, if your boat is sinking, do you care who comes to rescue you? If your boat is sinking, if I'm sinking in 31 feet of water, you could call the Coast Guard, you could call the aliens, you could call the Snow Bunny boat, you could call whoever you want to call if my boat is sinking. He told the operator, we don't need the Coast Guard. Who does that, Art? Who says we don't need the Coast Guard if we sinking? So she says, okay. She says, how many adults are on the boat? Pay attention to this, Art. We caught him in another lie. Listen to this. She says, how many adults are on the boat? He said, quote, there are no adults on the boat. He lied, Art. Second lie. First lie, he said, Nolan said, I'm staying behind to hang out with Katie. Y'all can leave me. Katie said Nolan told her, I'm headed back to the boat because my friend's about to leave. That was lie number one. That was lie number one. You lied and said Nolan said he was going to stay behind with Katie. That was a lie. Lie number two, the Cito operator asked you, how many adults are on the boat? He said there are no adults on the boat, Art. Why did he lie? Why did he lie? She said, how many people on the boat? He said, everybody on the boat is under 21. Art, she said, that was not my question. Art, she begged him to tell her how many people are on the boat. She said, that's not my question. How many people are on the boat? She said, is anybody breathing on the boat? He said, a lot of people breathing on the boat. She said, is there anybody living on the boat? He said, yes, people are alive on the boat. Art, I would like to investigate her. She didn't do no crime. I want to know what made that operator say, is anybody breathing on the boat? What made her say, is anybody alive on the boat, Art? What did she hear in the background? What did that operator hear in the background to make her ask him, is anybody breathing on the boat? That don't sound like a regular question. And then she said, is anybody living on the boat? It's almost like she could feel something was going on. I would love to know if those were standard questions, Art. I would love to know if those were standard questions or if she had a hunch that something fishy was going on. Now check this out, Art. She asked him a third or fourth time. He would not answer the question, Art. He would not answer the question. How many people are on the boat? Guess what he said, Art? Like 7. Like 7. Art, the boat only holds 8. They went out there that morning with 8. 7 Caucasians and Nolan. 7 Caucasians and Nolan. Art, they left with 7, right? When she said how many people on the boat, Art, why did he say like 7? Why didn't he say 7? It's only 7 people. Why couldn't he say 7? Why did he say like 7? You know why he said like 7, Art? Because he didn't know if Nolan was still alive or not. He didn't know if Nolan was still alive or not. So let me say like 7 in case he survives. Because Art, if you call me up and say, Dr. Umar, how many people at the basketball game? I can't count them all, Art. I'm going to say like 100. It's like 100. Because I don't know. It could be a little less than 100. It could be a little more than 100. I'm going to say it's like 100. But Art, if it's only 7 people on the boat, I don't need to say like 7. I could just say 7. He didn't want to give her a direct answer. Why didn't he want to give her a direct answer, Art? Because he knows it should have been 8 people on that boat. He know it should have been 8 people on that boat. So he said like 7 because he didn't want to say 7 so nobody can ask him where the hell was Nolan. Nolan's life was taken between 3:30 and 4:30, and they know exactly how and who. They know exactly how and who, Art. And they took the phone and the keys to get rid of any evidence. They took the phone and the keys to get rid of any evidence. And if Sister Christine and Sister Tashima didn't go to that girl's house to get that phone, they would have discarded it, Art. They were going to discard the keys in the phone and act like they never even had them either. Now, I'm going to give you this one piece, Art, and I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to give you this one piece, Art, and I'm going to leave it alone. As I said, I'm very disappointed in the fact that Sheriff Ledbetter and District Attorney Morath are not investigating all 30 of those children. I'm disappointed that all 3 boats were not treated like a crime scene. Now, my primary theory, they unalived him on the boat, threw him over to make it look like a drowning. They unalived him on the boat or on land before they took off, threw him in the water to make it look like a drowning. But I'm going to say this to you, Art. I have another theory as well. I got 2 theories. That's my first theory. Let me give you my second theory and we're done on this. There's a strong chance, Art, that after they unalived Nolan, they held on to the body overnight and dumped it the next day, Art. Or they took the body to one of the other islands around Horn Island and dumped the body. And let me tell you why I believe this, Art. Let's go back to Emmett Till. Let's go to Emmett Till, Art. Emmett Till was unalived on August 28th. They barbed wired Emmett Till to a 75-pound cotton gin, 1955. August 28th, 1955, Emmett Till was unalived, and they barbed wired him to a 75-pound cotton gin and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. The Tallahatchie River, Art, is a freshwater river. Horn Island is on the Gulf of Mexico. It's salt water. Salt water is rougher and more active and more buoyant than fresh water, Art. Follow me on this. Emmett Till got thrown in the Tallahatchie, barbed wired to a 75-pound cotton gin, Art, and his body made it up to the surface on August the 31st. Even though he was tied to a 75-pound cotton gin in a river, his body floated up to the surface in 3 days, Art. Emmett Till was 14. Nolan Wells is 18. If Nolan Wells was unalived and dumped immediately on July 4th, Art, we should have saw his body on July 5th. If Emmett Till's body can make it to the top in 3 days, tied to a cotton gin, Art, why did Nolan Wells' body only surface the morning of July 6th? I think there is a strong possibility they held onto his body, Art, because they were afraid that if they dumped it immediately, it would surface too soon. If they dumped Nolan's body too soon, it would have surfaced before they were ready. That body could have floated back, Art, before they made it back home. They all go to jail. They could have held onto his body, Art, and dumped it on July 5th or dumped it the morning of July 6th. Because according to science, Art, Nolan's body should not have surfaced for 3 days. Or, according to what happened to Emmett Till, it should have surfaced within a day. The fact that it took Nolan Wells' body 41 hours before we saw it, I think that body might have gotten dumped, Art. I think they might have held onto Nolan Wells' body and dumped it a day or two later. And that's why the other 2 boats are important to the investigation, Art. How do we know Nolan wasn't unalived on one boat and held on the second boat? How do we know that? How do we know a second boat didn't take Nolan Wells' corpse to one of them other islands and then the body floated back, Art? Why are we not investigating all 3 boats and all 30 white children? Art, I'm going to tell you like this. For that boy to not tell that CETO operator how many people was on that boat, and she asked him 3 times, and the fact he lied and said there was no adults, and then he still didn't answer her question and said everybody under 21, and she had to repeatedly say that was not my question. Why are you unwilling to tell her it's only 7 people and not 8 people? Last thing I'm going to say, Art, shout out to Tyler Perry, Terrell Owens, Colin Kaepernick for helping to pay for the funerals, autopsy, as well as reward money for information leading to an arrest. But guess what, Art? That reward money needs to be more than $175,000. Mississippi is the poorest state in America. 1 in 4 people live in poverty. We need that reward money, Art, to go up to $1 million. I need LeBron James, Rihanna, Tiger Woods, Venus, Serena, Kanye. Get that reward money up to $1 million, Art. We need the reward money up to $1 million so those white folks will start talking. $175,000, Art, is not enough money. We need $1 million. Guess how they found the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1964, Art? Remember the Ku Klux Klan murdered those 3 workers? Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner, Mississippi burning? Mississippi burning? Guess how they found out? An undercover FBI agent tipped off the FBI to where those 3 bodies were buried. Do the FBI have any undercover officers operating in this case? Does the state of Mississippi Bureau of Investigation have any undercover officers operating in this case? We need some undercover agents to weave into the lives of these young people and find out exactly what happened to Nolan Wells. And that's why Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton need to demand a federal takeover of this investigation immediately.
Speaking of Nolan Wells, when I was talking to Ben Crump, he was telling me about a guy named Daniel Irvin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You had two cases. You had Daniel Irving, 18 years old in Texas, and you had Daryl Martinez Lowry, 13 years old in South Carolina. Situations are similar, but very different. With Daniel Irving, 18 years old in the Dallas, Texas area, he goes out with two white kids. Allegedly, they jump from a bridge into a lake down in Texas. And he drowns in the water, Art. He drowns. To my knowledge, there's no witnesses. After he drowns, the two white kids, I believe they were both Caucasian, they throw away his clothes, they throw away his cell phone, and they delete all social media communication between themselves and Daniel Irving. He went missing April the 13th. They found Daniel on April the 17th. They finally arrested the 19-year-old involved in the situation. He just got arrested, I believe, the first week of July. Okay, maybe July 9th, July 7th, July 9th. But it took from April all the way to July for him to be arrested. And check this out, Art. They were not even arrested for murder. They were arrested for tampering with physical evidence. Third-degree felony. Think about that now. Y'all drown this black boy. Because, Art, if they didn't drown him, why would you throw his clothes away? If you didn't drown him, why would you throw his cell phone away? If you didn't drown him, why did you delete all of your social media? Why did you delete it? Right? Because y'all were guilty. Y'all either let him drown or y'all drowned him. I think they drowned him, Art, because there was no need to hide. If somebody drowns, Art, you call the police. Our friend drowned. We tried to save him. We're so sorry. Instead of doing that, Art, they just disappear. They just disappear. His body gets found April 17th. They don't get arrested until this month. Or should I say July, because we're in August now. Absolutely unacceptable. And they're only being charged with a third-degree felony, Art, tampering with physical evidence. They're not even going to be charged with murder. You know why? Because there was no witness there. Now, you know if this was reverse, Art. If a white kid drowned and two black kids were there, and two black kids threw away their cell phone, and two black kids threw away their clothing, and two black kids deleted all social media communication between the two of them, you know they going down for first-degree murder. You know it. It ain't even nothing to think about. But because the victim is black and the perpetrators are white, they only going to get a third-degree felony, Art. And then we had the case of the 13-year-old brother who was stabbed and drowned in South Carolina, Daryl Martinez Lowry. Daryl Martin, 13 years old, Art. Listen to this. He was in the custody of his foster parent. His foster parent was a county official. His foster parent was a county chairman who was sleeping inside of the lake house while these three teenagers was out on the lake, Art. First of all, a 13-year-old boy don't have no business hanging out with a 16 and 17-year-old boy, not alone. He was only 13, Art. He was a baby. These other two white kids, I believe they were both Caucasian, were 16 and 17. They get into a fight at the water, Art. They get into a fight. This happened July 20th. This happened July 20th. Same date Ryan Clark was fired from ESPN. July 20th, get into a fight at the lake. 17 and 16-year-old white boy. Guess what they do to this 13-year-old baby, Art? They stab him, and then they hold him under the water until he drowns. They stabbed him. He's only 13, Art. He's a baby. You 17, you almost a grown man. The other kid's 16. They stabbed Daryl Martinez Lowry, Art, holding under the water until he dies. I think the 17-year-old might get charged as an adult. He should. Of course, the juvenile in Daryl Martinez Lowry's case, as well as the juvenile in Daniel Irvin's case, we don't know what's going to happen with them because they juveniles. And if they Caucasian, I doubt if they get charged as adults. But Art, we got to stop letting our children think it's safe to go play with white kids, man. You know my position, all white people are racist. You know my position, you don't have a white friend. There's no such thing as a black person with a white friend. But the problem, Art, the reason why Nolan Wells went out there with them white kids, the reason why Daniel Irvin went out there with them white kids, the reason why Daryl Martinez Lowry, and in his case, it's a little different because he should have been supervised by the foster parent who was asleep. And he was under state supervision, foster care custody. So he was under the custody of the foster care parent, state supervision, and he was only 13, Art. So he should have never even been put in that position. But the problem is this is Abrahamic religion. This is Abrahamic religion, Art. And what I mean by that when I say this is Abrahamic religion, being raised in Sunni Orthodox Islam and Orthodox Christianity, you are not taught about race consciousness. Everything is Jesus or Muhammad. So unfortunately, most of our kids in this country are raised as Muslims or Christians, right? And they are raised with a colorblind mentality, and they take this politically ignorant, colorblind mentality with them into their relationships with white people. They take it with them into their relationships in school. They take it with them into their relationships in a job, in society, and it never works out well for us. We still got black children thinking that not all white people are racist. We still got black children thinking that it's all about the content of your character and not the color of your skin. And this is going to keep on happening, God forbid, Art, because we are not raising our children with a racial consciousness. Our children don't know that they should not trust white people. I didn't say hate them. I don't believe you should hate nobody. I respect all white people. I have conversations with white people. I have white fans, right? But you cannot trust white people because of what we've been through in this country. It would be idiotic to do so. We have been through nothing but 246 years of hell in slavery, okay? And now we're up to 407 to 8 years total. You cannot have your children trusting white people. You cannot have your child being the only black person in a group of white people. Look at Nolan Wells. Look at Daniel Irvin. Come on. This should not be happening, Art. And it's happening because the black community, as much as we have suffered at the hands of white supremacy from racism, we don't want to teach our children about racism. And if it is a Muslim household or a Christian household, we think it is a sin against God to give our children a racial consciousness. We have allowed religion to take over racial consciousness to the point where there is no racial consciousness, Art. Absolutely sad and unacceptable. It is a shame that all these black kids are dying in the water with white children. You would think, Art, after 246 years of slavery, we've been getting on the water with white folks and we don't come home. We got on the ship with white folks in Africa, Art, and we never made it back home. If anybody should know you don't get on no boat with no white folks, it should be black people. But we don't know it, Art, because we crave white approval so bad. We crave white validation so bad. We value proximity to whiteness so bad, Art, that we will put our children in harm's way, just to try to force ourselves into white people's worlds. And it's such a shame, Art. We better bring black racial consciousness for black children, not racial hatred, not racial bigotry. We don't have to mistreat nobody. We don't have to hate nobody, but we have to learn from our historical experience. What they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We keep putting ourselves around white people, our children around white people over and over again, Art, expecting a different result. And look at all the white people, Art, who are getting off or getting soft sentences for murdering black people. There was a white guy, I think it's Texas. He choked out 2 black girls. He's not going to jail at all. Plea deal. Another white guy hit and ran, murdered 2 black women in Fort Lauderdale. He hit them, Art. He ran. It was a hit and run. They died. Guess what? He going to jail for 6 months. There was another white guy who tried to commit a mass shooting at a black family reunion. There was an armed brother there, former veteran. He took him down, humbled him, didn't take his life. Guess what? They let him off on like a $5,000 bail, $10,000 bail, Art, and he tried to take out a whole family, mass murder. White people are emboldened, Art. They're emboldened because the justice system is not holding them accountable for their crimes against black people. What about the white man who ran over that black boy on his big wheel? Was that South Carolina, Georgia? A white guy ran over a black kid on the big wheel, Art, took his life. It was a hit and run. It was a hit and run. And I don't think he got any time either. Art, they killing us and they walking. They killing us and they walking. And this is what I want to say to all the Kamala Harris black people out there, the Democratic Party plantation slaves, Art. If y'all love Kamala Harris so much, tell Kamala Harris to sponsor an anti-black hate bill, Art. Where is our anti-black hate bill? The Asians got one. Homosexuals got one. Native Americans got one. Where is the anti-black hate bill? Where is it, Art? Sister Tasia Fortune hanging from a tree. Trey Reed hanging from a tree. Baby Cohen shot on the side, unalived. Look at this crap. White man shoots up a family reunion, $5,000 bail. White man chokes out 2 black girls, no jail time. White man hits and runs 2 black women. He only gets 6 months in jail. Art, they killing us. And the justice system is not even holding them accountable. Absolutely unacceptable, Art. We are going to need to rise up soon. Black America better stop playing. We're going to need to rise up and remind Donald Trump and this country who we are. Just like these racist white kids are their ancestors, those children who took out Nolan Wells, they are their ancestors. Well, guess what? We need to show them that we Nat Turner too. I'm Gabriel Prosser. I'm John Jacques Dessalines. I'm Zumi de Palmares. I'm Tula Incarpata of Curacao. I'm Mama Solitude and Luis del Grace of Guadalupe. Okay, I'm Denmark Vesey. I'm Gabriel Prosser. I'm Harriet Tubman. We need to show them who we are, Art, because they playing in our face. They taking our life and there's no consequences. The Democratic Party ain't doing nothing about it. The NAACP, the Urban League, Al Sharpton, Ben Crump, ain't nobody really doing nothing about this. Ain't nobody doing nothing about this except going through the motions. We need justice, not no paycheck, not no settlement check, not no civil suit. We need justice, and we need to stand up and fight. And if anybody want the black vote in November, and if anybody want the black vote in November of 2028 for the presidential elections, Art, we better have an anti-black hate bill. Reparations, anti-black hate bill, police reform. Reparations, anti-black hate bill, police reform, and prison reform. If you ain't talking that, ain't nobody voting for you. I don't want to hear it. They said Kamala Harris might run for president again. Of course, we know America now is trying to make the East Indian the new probationary white. It makes perfect sense. The British used the East Indians in the Caribbean. They also used them in Africa. Now America is going to use the East Indians against black people in this country. The East Indians are currently taking over, is it the Bronx or Queens? It's either the Bronx or Queens, Art. The East Indians are taking over the Bronx or Queens. They're going to end up taking over New York City. Because listen, the white man is losing his numbers, Art. The white man's numbers are dwindling, not only in America and around the world. So they have to find another probationary white group. Whenever they get too small, Art, they find another group to latch on to maintain power. They can't control the Chinese. The Chinese cannot be controlled by the white man. The Latinos are still black, so they don't really want to use them. And plus, they can't use the Latinos against the Chinese and the East Indians. So the white man has chosen the East Indian to be the probationary whites. So they're going to empower the East Indians over us. That's why Kash Patel, FBI director, East Indian, Kamala Harris, former vice president, East Indian, Mamdani, mayor of New York, East Indian. And they might give Kamala Harris the White House. I'm not sure they want to give it to her though, Art, but they might give it to her. And if she becomes president, she's going to continue with the East Indian onslaught. Black people are going to start being mistreated, murdered, disrespected by East Indians. We better get ready for it. They did it in Africa. They did it in the Caribbean with the white man using the East Indians as a buffer group between him and the blacks. And now the white man is going to use the East Indian in America as a buffer group between him and the blacks. We better get ready. I'm not voting for nobody unless they got solutions for black people. I'm not voting for nobody unless they have solutions for black people.
So you think it's a chance that Kamala, she could be the next president?
I believe so. I don't know if it's going to be her, but I do think the next president will be Democrat. I think Donald Trump has burned too many bridges. I think this country might go into a civil unrest if the next president is a Republican. I'm not saying it's impossible. We had Reagan and Bush. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's unlikely. I think the next president is a Democrat, and I think they continue the gentrification of the black community. We are being replaced, Art, and we're helping them replace ourselves by constantly bunny hopping and reproducing with these non-African women. We're helping them to actually get rid of us ourselves, which is interesting, right? Because right now you have a lot of black people, Art, who are upset and angry because of the new British African brother who's going to play Black Panther. So the new Black Panther is going to be the British African brother. I forget his name. He played in The Long Walk. He played in Alien. He did a very good job. Very good job. He's a great actor. I like him a lot. I don't have a problem with him being the next Black Panther, but a lot of the FBA DOSs, they don't like it, right? They said it should have been a black freedman. But like I said before when we had this conversation, Art, unless it's an ancestor, if it's an ancestor of the American Africans, an American African should get the first chance at playing that ancestor. If it's a Jamaican African ancestor, then the Jamaican brothers and sisters should get a chance to play him. If it's a British African ancestor, then the British African brothers and sisters should get a chance to play him. If it's an American African ancestor, we should get the first dibs on playing him, right? But here's my question, Art. Don't get mad at him. Go ask, what's our brother name who produced Black Panther and Sinners? Ryan Coogler. Go ask Ryan Coogler why he put a British African in his Black Panther. And I'm going to be honest with you, Art, I don't think it was Ryan Coogler's decision. I don't think it was Ryan Coogler's decision. This is coming from the government. This is coming from Hollywood. I think Ryan Coogler was told that he had to cast a British African. I don't have no problem with that. I love my British African brothers and sisters. I was just there for the reparations march on Saturday. I just came back from London. I don't have a problem with it. I'm going to go see the movie. I'm going to support my brother. I think he's a good actor. But for those who have a problem with it, go ask Ryan Coogler why he didn't consider any American Africans black freedmen for the role. Like I said, Art, we are a $2 trillion people. We should be making our own movies. We shouldn't be crying because Hollywood ain't putting black folks in there. How you crying about black British actors taking these roles and you keep having babies with white women? Sooner or later, most black people ain't even going to be black. They're going to be mixed race and they're not even going to identify as black. So you mad that we're being replaced on Hollywood, Art, but you're not mad we replacing ourselves in society. That don't even make sense to me. I'm mad that I'm being replaced on the TV screen, but I'm not mad that I'm voluntarily destroying my own genotype and phenotype by constantly mixing my seed with these non-black women. We got to stop with the selective morality. We got to stop it with the selective morality. Leave that brother alone. I'm looking forward to seeing him play it. I think he's going to do a great job. If you got a problem with him being Black Panther, go ask Ryan Coogler or make your own movies.
Angel Reese, she got her own Barbie doll now. You heard about that?
A lot of people are angry at Angel Reese, white people, because Angel Reese says she didn't really play with dolls growing up because they didn't look like her or something to that effect. She's absolutely correct, Art. Okay, we still have doll tests that are being done with black children right now, where they show black children white dolls and black dolls, Art. And overwhelmingly, black children are still choosing the white dolls as the most attractive. Nothing has changed. The first major doll test was done in 1954 as part of the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision that was championed by Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall, Art, where they took black dolls and white dolls and asked the black children which doll was ugly, which doll was intelligent. And for all the positive attributes, the black children chose the white doll. And for all the negative attributes, the black children chose the black doll. That doll test has been replicated at least 3 or 4 times all the way up until today. Okay, you're talking almost 70 years later with the same effect. If you take black children and go into a toy store right now, Art, they're going to pick up the white dolls. They're going to pick up the white dolls. And if you go into any toy store right now, you're only going to see a handful of black dolls. Most of the dolls are white women. So when these white people get mad at Angel Reese, Caucasian Nation, one of them said, Art, well, the black Barbie doll been around since 1980. The black Barbie doll been around since 1980. Yes, it's true, okay, that they gave us the first black Barbie doll in 1980, but we haven't had many. Yeah, Venus and Serena got a Barbie doll. Rosa Parks got a Barbie doll. Beyonce got a Barbie doll. Destiny Child's got a Barbie doll. Diane Carroll got a Barbie doll. And there's a lot more black Barbies now, Art, but nowhere near as many as it is white. And most of them still got weaves and perms. Most of them still got the European body, white nose, white lips, hazel eyes. They still have European features and fake hair. They still have European features and straight hair, fake hair, weaves, and perms. Very few Barbie dolls have the true historical build of the black women, her complexion, her nose, her lips. They do have some art. Some of the Barbie dolls do got the black nose, the black lips, and the black hips, but most of them don't. They're nothing but the white Barbie doll painted black. Angel Reese told the truth. Angel Reese told the truth. Black children think they are ugly because most of the dolls are white. Angel Reese told the truth. So I don't know why these white women is crashing out on Angel Reese. She told the truth. Most dolls are white, and the ones that are black, they look like white dolls, are. They look like white dolls. First of all, the first time they gave us a black doll was actually before 1980. 1968, they gave Barbie a black friend, Art. In 1968, they made a black doll who was a friend to Barbie. She wasn't a Barbie. She was Barbie's friend, and they did that to placate black people around the time they murdered Dr. King. So they murdered Dr. King and said, let's give the black girls a black doll, right? They murdered Dr. King. This is the stuff that they do to try to placate and calm down black people to prevent a revolution, okay? Black kids are still choosing white dolls because there's not a lot of black dolls that are out there, but you still have black women now coming out with their own doll companies, Art. The Honorable Marcus Garvey, Art, I don't know if you noticed, he built a black doll factory in New York City in the 1920s. That's how important Marcus Garvey understood black children needed to see themselves in the world. Marcus Garvey built a black doll company so black children would have black dolls to play with, Art. That's 100 years ago he did that. So this whole black doll phenomenon, even though we've always had black dolls, they have always been in the minority. It has never been enough. Angel Reese is absolutely right. Sure, there was a couple Barbie dolls Angel Reese's mom could have bought for her, but it was only a couple. Most dolls are overwhelmingly white. And like I said, the ones that are black, they still look like white girls with perms. Make it make sense. I stand by Angel Reese.
Same here. I stand by her as well. I've been seeing a lot of commotion about this, and I want to get your take on it. Transgenders playing in the WNBA. How you feel about that?
As far as transgenders in the WNBA, I'm against it. I'm against transgenders in any sport. I think it's unfair to women to have to compete against biological men. It is absolutely unfair. But once the Democrats get back in the White House, they will be back. Okay, they will be back. The Democratic Party is the party of the LGBTQ XYZ. They will once again allow biological men to compete against biological women. It is so unfair. I can't believe they're doing it. I guess they're doing it to keep them votes because it's all about the votes at this point. Okay, and Donald Trump took so much of the Hispanic vote. I guess the Democrats feel like they got to hold on to the LGBTQ vote. So I guess they're going to do whatever they need to do to make this happen. I think it's a damn shame. Barack Obama started all this nonsense when he was president. I blame him more than anybody else because this was his baby. He's the first president in American history to discuss transgenderism. He actually mentioned the word transgender during a State of the Union address. He's the first one to appoint transgenders to federal offices. Okay, he was the first one to put out transgender law. This was Barack Obama. This is what he did. Okay, so even the Matthew Shepard Hate Crimes Act, Art, they added James Byrd name to that later. That act wasn't about James Byrd, the black man who was lynched and drugged to his death in Jasper, Texas. That was about the gay white man who was beat up and unalived. And don't get me wrong, I don't think nobody should be harmed or hurt because of their gender or gender identity. But my point is, the 2009 Federal Hate Crimes Act that Barack Obama signed, it was not signed for black people in James Byrd who get murdered by racist whites. It was it was signed and passed for homosexuals who get abused. His name, Matthew Shepard, was a homosexual art who was beat really badly by white folks, his own people, and he was left out to die. That's who it was named. They added James Byrd because Barack Obama wanted to throw black people a bone. He didn't want it to be so obvious that I'm doing everything for homosexuals, nothing for black people. So let me put James Byrd's name. Let me add James Byrd's name to the Matthew Shepard hate crimes bill, Art. It wasn't about James Byrd. Barack Obama didn't do that for black people. He only added his name on it. That was about homosexual hate crimes. Homosexual hate crimes, Art. That's what that was about. But getting back to your question, here's the thing. The LGBTQ want to invade the WNBA. The LGBTQ want to invade the WNBA. And the WNBA, Art, is split. They 50-50. The WNBA is 50-50. A lot of them support transgenders in it. A lot of them don't. Okay? The reason why the WNBA has not yet allowed right now, the WNBA only allows biological women. The WNBA only allows biological women right now. You know why, Art? It ain't because they are necessarily against transgenders and women's sports. It's because a lot of people will stop watching it if you let men play. You feel me, Art? A lot of women are going to stop watching WNBA if you let men play. I like WNBA. I really do. I plan on going to some games this year. But if they let men play, I'm not going to watch it no more either. It's unfair, Art. It's unfair. Okay, so the WNBA is in a tight spot. They're trying to hold on, Art. They're trying to hold on. But I'm going to tell you what's going to happen when the Democrats get back in office. You know what's going to happen? The transgenders are going to sue. They're going to sue the WNBA for gender-based discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act that our ancestors fought for. Here we go again. Barack Obama appropriating black justice for white gays. Here we go. They're going to take Dr. King's, Fannie Lou Hamer's, SNCC, CORE, SCLC's 1964 Civil Rights Bill, and they're going to sue the WNBA for gender discrimination, and they're going to force them to let biological men play in the WNBA. And when they do that, Art, the WNBA will go out of business. That will be the end of the WNBA. So I don't know how the Democratic Party going to play this thing, because on the one hand, the WNBA, people like it, and it's a nice little business. It's a nice moneymaker. On the other hand, you got the Zesty movement who want to colonize the WNBA. So what is the U.S. government going to do? We know Donald Trump, he don't support it at all, right? But the Democrats, they hang their hat on LGBT justice, LGBTQ justice. So I think they sue once the next Democratic president get in there. I think they win, and I think the WNBA gets destroyed, unfortunately.
Caitlin Clark, I never got an update from you on how her career going right now. You got some people that call her the face of the league, and you got some people that say that she's not good enough to be the face of the league. How you feel about that, man?
I don't think Caitlin Clark is the face of the league. I think she's a good player. I think they tried to make her the face of the league. It's not going to work because Asia Wilson is by far the best player to ever play. Okay. And so, especially currently. So Caitlin Clark ain't ever going to be the face of the WNBA as long as Asia Wilson is in the league. And the WNBA went so far. See, here's the thing. When they made LeBron James the face of the league, Art, he was good enough to withstand the competition. Angel Reese wasn't good enough, not Angel Reese. Caitlin Clark was not good enough to withstand the competition. She's a great player, don't get me wrong, but she is not head and shoulders above the others. LeBron was kind of head and shoulders above most of the other players. You only had a dozen that could probably compete with him. Kobe, Michael Jordan, you only had about a dozen who could probably compete with them. Magic Johnson, you only had about a dozen. Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaq, who could compete with them. So it was okay to anoint them the face of the league, right? But you anointed Caitlin Clark the face of the league before she even played, Art. Before she even played, they anointed her the face of the league. She's not that good to be the face. It's Asia Wilson.
Yeah, there's a good amount of players right now that's better than her.
Absolutely. She's good. I think the WNBA did her wrong, to be honest with you. Caitlin Clark was done wrong because y'all should not have anointed her before she could prove if she could hold that title. She's a great player, but she is not good enough to be the face of the WNBA. There's at least a half dozen to a dozen players that are clearly way better than she is. And remember, Art, when you're the face of a league, everybody comes for you. Everybody comes for you. So when Caitlin Clark plays, she's getting the other team's best because athletes are tired of the NBA kissing up to her when she's not as great as they're trying to make her to be. So they kind of hurt her by making her more than what she was before she was ready. It really wasn't fair to Caitlin Clark, to be honest with you. They should have never done that. But that was that white racism. That was that white racism. It was complete discrimination against Asia Wilson. That was completely disrespectful to anoint Caitlin Clark the face of the WNBA when you got arguably the greatest female basketball player of all time, still active, still on top, still winning, way more accolades, way more statistics than Caitlin Clark. That was so unfair to Asia Wilson. And then to see LeBron James and Shannon Sharp and all the rest of them guys kiss up to Caitlin Clark, following the WNBA's league, that was absolutely disgusting as well.
Speaking of LeBron, I know you from Philly. How you feel about him playing for the Sixers?
I mean, I've always liked LeBron as a person, as a player. Do I think he's better than Kobe Bryant? Of course not. Do I think he's better than Mike? Of course not. However, I would give him the edge off the court. He has a black wife. Kobe didn't. Mike does not. Okay. Black children. He has spoken up just a little more on social justice issues. I can't put him too far ahead of him in terms of social justice because he did side with Israel against the Palestinians. He's pro-Zionist. So I don't give him too much in that regard. And of course, he did help the NBA stage off a black players protest due to police brutality back during COVID. And that's why the NBA helped him win that COVID championship. That COVID championship that the Lakers won, that was a reward for LeBron James helping the NBA prevent the players from walking out in support of the police brutality protest that was sweeping Black America. And he also helped another potential player-led protest where they could have walked out and froze the NBA season based on the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And so when LeBron James and his partner Maverick Carter made that announcement, that they stand with Israel, basically, that really kind of put that on ice, and that stopped a lot of NBA players from trying to speak up for Palestine because that could have turned into another protest. Art. So he has helped the NBA stave off two major protests. One by the Black community against police genocide and violence, and another by the entire American community against the Zionists for what they're doing against the Palestinians. So they owe LeBron another championship. And now this decision to come to Philadelphia, I don't have a problem with it. I think LeBron James has done enough for the sport, Art, that if he wants to ring chase, he has a right to. Is he ring chasing? Hell yeah. LeBron is ring chasing. Ain't no question about it. He's coming to the Sixers to ring chase. But I don't have a problem with it because he's done enough for the sport where I think he has a right to ring chase. Now, is he ever going to be considered better than Michael Jordan? Not by people who saw Michael Jordan play, right? So you and I, we saw Jordan play, we saw Kobe play, we saw LeBron play. We know Mike is better. We know Kobe is better. But guess what, Art? If LeBron wins a fifth or sixth ring, 50 years from now, when people who didn't see Michael Jordan play, Kobe play, or LeBron play, they're just going to see that this guy won 5 or 6 championships with 4 different teams, and he has all the statistics because he played much longer than Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. They're going to call LeBron James the GOAT. So LeBron ain't playing for now, Art. LeBron is playing for the future. LeBron is playing for when he's 70 years old and the GOAT conversation comes up. It's going to be hard not to say LeBron James if he gets 6 rings like Michael Jordan, plus have all the statistical achievements. If he get 5 rings like Kobe Bryant, plus have all of the statistical achievements. Now, there's a lot of conspiracies out there about LeBron coming to Philadelphia partly to complete the Kobe ritual. I don't believe all of it, Art, but I do believe there's some truth to that. I do believe there's some truth to that. LeBron James made the announcement that he was leaving the Los Angeles Lakers on June 30th, Art. That is the same date Kobe allegedly essayed the white girl in Colorado. June 30th, LeBron made his announcement. June 30th is the anniversary of when Kobe allegedly essayed the white girl in Colorado. When LeBron passed Kobe the night before Kobe was unalived, he did it in Philadelphia, Kobe City, with 7 minutes and 24 seconds left on the shot clock. Kobe wore the number 24, right? And then LeBron James made his announcement that he was coming to the Sixers on July the 24th, which is the same time he passed Kobe. 7 minutes and 24 seconds left, Art, in the game. He passed Kobe in scoring, 7:24. And then on 7:24 again, he announces that he's coming to Kobe City. So he played for the Lakers for 8 years. Kobe wore the number 8, and now he's going to come back to Kobe City and tie him in rings and possibly pass him if the NBA allows him to get 6. They're going to give him 5, Art. LeBron is getting a ring.
You think so?
Yeah, they're going to engineer it. Listen, I love the New York Knicks. I was a Knicks fan when Patrick Ewing played. They were my favorite team. When Patrick retired, that's when I went back to my Sixers, right? But I'm going to be honest, and this takes nothing away from the New York Knicks, Art. I like the New York Knicks. Snow Bunny Brunson, Josh Hart, I love them guys. Cat, I love them. But let's be honest, Art. The NBA playoffs is orchestrated. There's some engineering to the NBA playoffs. The New York Knicks barely got out the first round against the Hawks. They barely got out the first round. You sweep Cleveland, you sweep Philly, you gentlemen sweep the Spurs, and your best player is a 6'1" guard? No way. No way. There was some engineering. New York hadn't had a championship in a long time. They are America's biggest market. On top of that, Black New Yorkers are getting their property snatched up by the Zionists. Mom Domney is the mayor. They needed to cover up the property takeover of Black properties by the Zionists in New York City. So by giving New York City the championship, you are able to quiet down all that protest from Black people who are being robbed of their homes by the Zionists in New York. LeBron James coming to Philadelphia, Art, I don't have a problem with it. Good luck to LeBron. Good luck to the family. But do I think he made this decision by himself? Of course not. Not for 1 minute, Art, do I think he made this decision by himself. LeBron James is coming to Philly for a couple reasons, Art. Number one, to help these Democrats get reelected. That's right. If LeBron James campaigns for any of these Democrats, whether they running for state legislator, city council, mayor, anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania, they also talking about the Pennsylvania governor might want to run for president, Art, or vice president. If LeBron James campaigns for any of Pennsylvania's Democratic Party elected officials, they're likely to win. So this is about election 28, Art. LeBron James coming to the Philadelphia 76ers is partly about election 28. Guess what else it's about, Art? America's 250th birthday. America just celebrated her 250th birthday, Art. What could be better than to have LeBron James come to Philadelphia, win the championship in the red, white, and blue? He becomes Captain Black America. LeBron James is the new Captain America, Art, because with LeBron winning the NBA championship in Philadelphia, Art, that improves America's image. That improves America's reputation. Donald Trump is destroying America's reputation. Donald Trump is destroying America's image. If LeBron James wins the championship for Philadelphia, he becomes Captain Black America. He raises up the respectability of America throughout the world. People will start believing in America again. They'll believe in the land of the free and home of the brave instead of land of the thief and home of the slave. So this is being done for American propaganda, international relations, America's foreign agenda. America needs LeBron in Philly, Art. Remember that the Knicks didn't win a title for 53 years. The Sixers haven't won a title in 43 years. The Knicks haven't won in 53 years. The Sixers haven't won in 43 years. And the NBA needs to make the East Coast relevant again. The NBA needs to make the Eastern Conference relevant again. Another reason he's in Philadelphia, Art, is to suffocate the gentrification of Black Philly, to suffocate the displacement of Black residents. A couple years ago, Philadelphia was ranked #1 in gentrification throughout this country. We know that Philadelphia County has historically incarcerated more youth without parole than any country in the world. Okay? Right now, Philadelphia has one of the highest Black-white income gaps in the country. Okay? White Philadelphia makes 70% more money than Black Philadelphia. White Philadelphia has 70% more wealth than Black Philadelphia. Okay, the unemployment rate for Black people in Philadelphia is twice as high as whites. The homeless rate at least twice as high as whites. Philadelphia right now is the 7th most expensive place to live in. Okay, from 1980 to the year 2000, Art, 10 predominantly Black Philadelphia neighborhoods have become white. 10 predominantly Black Philadelphia neighborhoods have been gentrified. So with LeBron James coming to Philadelphia, that's going to attract more white people to the city. That's going to raise the property values. That's going to displace more Black people out of the city. Okay? So Philadelphia needs this to complete their gentrification. America needs this to save the image. The Democratic Party needs LeBron James to help get its people elected. And there's one final reason the NBA needs LeBron in Philly, Art. So the Democratic Party needs him in Philly. White gentrification needs them in Philly. Okay? And another reason why they need LeBron in Philly. The NBA needs LeBron in Philly, Art, because they want to permanently silence the Kobe Bryant GOAT conversation. The NBA don't want Kobe Bryant in the GOAT conversation, Art, because he got accused of SA-ing the Snow Bunny. I think he was innocent. That Snow Bunny was proven to have lied on other men, I believe, in the past, allegedly. Her own people who knew her said that she was mentally unstable. She had accused other men of doing the same thing who was innocent. I think Kobe was innocent, Art, but it don't matter. It does not matter. The feminist groups are out there, and they will attack the NBA if Kobe Bryant is ever deemed the GOAT. That's why they don't need him in the conversation. That's why they don't allow him in the conversation, Art. That's why they don't allow Kobe in the conversation, because of the SA allegation. Bringing LeBron to Philly, Art, to get 5 rings and tie Kobe in Kobe City and possibly get 6 rings and pass Kobe again in Kobe City, just like he did on the scoring list, Art. As far as the NBA is concerned, that will crush the argument of Kobe Bryant being the greatest of all time. He cannot be the GOAT because he tried to start a professional basketball league in China to rival the NBA. He tried to start a professional sneaker team, a player-owned sneaker team that would have rivaled Nike, allegedly. They can't have it, Art. And he was accused of SA-ing a white woman. They can't have Kobe in the GOAT conversation. That's why they hired Allen Iverson, Art. Allen Iverson retired in 2013, I think it was, Art. Allen Iverson been retired for 13 years. He's the greatest Sixer of all time, as far as I'm concerned. One of my favorite players of all time. Allen Iverson never kissed nobody's ass. He did everything his way. That's why they never gave him a championship. But here's the thing, though, Art. Allen Iverson considers Kobe and Mike to be the best 2 players. He said this repeatedly, that Kobe and Mike are at the top. Allen Iverson. That's why they just gave him a player development coach job, Art. Why they didn't hire Allen Iverson since he retired? He been retired for 13 years, Art. They never gave him a job. All of a sudden, they give Allen Iverson a player development coach job. You know why, Art? Because they're going to give LeBron the title. Allen Iverson will get a championship as a player development coach. So Iverson gets a ring, and LeBron gets a ring. And the reason they need Iverson on board, Art, because Iverson is the most popular Sixer of all time. If they give Iverson a ring, the gentleman's agreement will be you can no longer say Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron. If the Sixers win the title, Art, and Allen Iverson gets a ring as a player development coach, he can no longer say Kobe Bryant is better than LeBron James. The NBA wants to crush Kobe's legacy. They don't want him talked about in the GOAT conversation. So we're going to bring LeBron to Philly. We're going to give Allen Iverson a job in Philly, who we never treated the way he should have been treated. Allen Iverson was never treated well by the Philadelphia 76ers, especially after he retired. And now he gets a coaching job. Art, when LeBron gets there, that's because they need Allen Iverson on board to say LeBron is the GOAT, or at least he's number 2 to Michael Jordan. They need Allen Iverson to stop saying Kobe is better than LeBron, and that's why they hired him as a coach. So America has a reason for LeBron being here, Art. White gentrification has a reason for LeBron being here. The Democratic Party has a reason for LeBron being here. And the NBA has a reason for LeBron being here. And I don't have a problem with it. Let LeBron finish his career here. I like him as a person. He's not much of an activist at all, but I do like him as a person. He's a good guy, black wife, black children, never been in no trouble. I got nothing but respect for him. But he did not make this decision by himself. The Zionists of the NBA helped him to make this decision.
And to stay on sports, Ryan Clark, you heard about how he got fired by ESPN?
Ryan Clark was fired by ESPN for the same reason Jaylen Brown was traded to the Sixers. White men, generally speaking, not everybody, but the narcissists, they cannot tolerate a black man being the smartest man in the room. This goes back to Robert Greene's book, Art, The 48 Laws of Power. The first law is don't outshine the master. And as far as black men in America are concerned, the white man is always the master. And Ryan Clark has been very unapologetic, but very professional and very articulate in his defense of black people and in his defense of black issues. And I think that there were fellow commentators as well as executives in ESPN who developed an envy, an animosity, and a jealousy for Ryan Clark, and they couldn't wait to see him removed from the network. Now, I can understand Ryan Clark's pain. I don't have a problem with Ryan Clark crying. I wish he would not have done it on air because I knew his enemies would try to use it against him. And I knew white people would try to laugh at him behind his back. But I didn't have a problem with it. He gave ESPN 11 years of his life. He was on at least 5 different major flagship shows. He helped NFL Live win 2 Emmy Awards. And then in 2023, Art, Ryan Clark won an Emmy himself for Outstanding Personality Sports Analyst. And personally, Art, if you ask me, ever since Ryan Clark won that Emmy, Outstanding Personality for Sports Analyst in 2023, I felt like his days on the network were numbered right there. Because for him to be chosen over all of those white men who think they are the SHIT on that ESPN network, for him to win that, I think that really shattered a lot of egos. And I think ever since he won that Emmy in 2023, they were looking for ways to get rid of him. And then they tried to buck break our brother Ryan. They tried to buck break him, to fire a man while he is live on a show and to communicate the firing to him during a commercial break with 10 minutes remaining in the broadcast. You tried to humiliate him. You wanted to embarrass him and you wanted to humiliate him. So what? He checked those other white commentators. They check people all the time. The problem is, Art, Ryan was too sharp, too smooth, too articulate. He was the best NFL commentator on ESPN, and they just couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't take the self-assured, self-confident black man. He was not braggadocious. He was not cocky. He was not overconfident. He was comfortable in his skin. Same thing with Jaylen Brown, Art. Same thing with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown don't need the NBA. He's there because he wants to be. How many players can say that, Art? Jaylen Brown could go be a professor at MIT. Jaylen Brown could go and start his own AI company. Jaylen Brown could go and start his own tech company. Jaylen Brown is a genius, bro. He's a genius. He don't need the NBA. He's in the NBA because he wants to be, and he doesn't have to be. And to be a dark-skinned brother, a proud, unapologetically African dark-skinned brother, you know those racist Boston Irish couldn't stand him. You know those racist Boston Irish couldn't stand Jaylen Brown. And that's why he got traded. They traded him for Paul George. I like Paul George. But Paul George is no longer what Jaylen Brown is. Okay? And the thing is, they don't like black men being the smartest men in the room. Period, point blank in the story. And Shady McCoy, he clapped at Ryan Clark. I don't think he should have done that. I was a Shady McCoy fan when he played for the Eagles. I thought him, Deshaun Jackson, and Michael Vick was one of the best backfields we've ever seen. I thought we should have went deeper into the playoffs. He was a great running back, great career up there, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I used to be principal at. But I don't think he should have took that opportunity to clap at Ryan Clark. Whatever personal beef that Shady McCoy and Ryan Clark had or have, he could have done that at another time. We have to stop kicking our brothers when they down in public, Art. For Shady McCoy to clap at Ryan Clark at that time, I thought that was conduct unbecoming a black man. Okay, no disrespect to Shady McCoy. I respect him, but he should not have clapped at Ryan Clark the way that he did. That was completely unacceptable. Like right now, what's going on with Roland Martin, Art? Roland Martin is being allegedly exposed. Allegedly, there's a woman, 5'5", thick in the thigh, big booty queen from Toledo, Ohio, allegedly, who was involved in an affair with Roland Martin, and she decided to expose him or extort him for money. I don't know if she just putting the pictures out or if she's trying to extort him for money, allegedly. But they said Roland Martin they got pictures of him in an uncompromising position, booty tooted up in the air, allegedly with a G-string on, and the girl is popping her fingers in his bussy. Allegedly. I don't know if it's true or not, but guess what? Everybody knows Roland Martin is a Dr. Umar hater, but I'm not going to kick him when he's down. Everybody knows Roland Martin is a Dr. Umar hater, but I don't want to see that happen to no black man, Art. He got a wife. He's married to a beautiful pastor. His wife is a pastor. I think they've been married about 21 years. I'm hurting for her because I don't want that sister walking in the church, Art, and seeing people laugh in her face or talk about her behind her back because her husband is out here getting booty popped, okay, by the 5'5" thick in the thigh hood queen. You know what I mean? So I just don't think we should kick black men when they down. I hope Roland Martin beats this and get back on top and keep doing what he's doing. I can't stand the man. You know what I mean? But I don't want to see nothing like this happen to anybody. Remember, the Democratic Party gave Roland Martin $250,000 the last presidential cycle, to basically bully black people into voting for Kamala Harris. It didn't work. She still lost, right? But, he got to be careful because he's a member of the black bourgeoisie. Roland Martin is a member of the black bourgeoisie. He's a card-carrying member of the boule. He's very proud about it. So he can't afford to get caught up in those scandals. He can't afford that, right? Because that could cost him his Democratic Party sponsorship, other endorsements. But he'll beat this. He just got to ignore it. A lot of people are saying he need to respond. No, he don't. Roland Martin should keep his mouth shut and keep doing what he's doing, Art. If he feeds into this, it'll only get bigger. YouTube don't care about the truth. YouTube care about clicks, views, and likes. That's all they after. So Roland Martin need to stay focused, keep his head down, keep doing what he's doing. If you like to get popped in the booty, allegedly, ask your wife to pop you in the booty, bro. Ask your wife to pop you in the booty. You can't be going outside your marriage, getting some chick on the side to stick her fingers in your pussy. It's not cool. They saying he got pictures going around talking about he got a Shango stick that looked like a sardine. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. But I'm not going to laugh at cut it out, Art. I'm not going to laugh at my brother. I like to eat sardines. I'm a sardine. I eat 2 cans of sardines a day. It's good for your brain health, Art. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to laugh at my brother. They said he got a Shango stick that looked like a sardine. But listen, we can't knock brothers when they down. That's all I'm going to say. We cannot knock brothers when they down. I hope Roland Martin recovers. He will recover. Protect yourself, brother, for the sake of your beautiful black wife. Protect yourself. And I wish Ryan Clark the best. You know, he already got a podcast that's doing well. He's going to be back on TV, Art. Ryan Clark is going to get another offer because he's just too strong. I'm sure he's probably already getting offers right now. He's an Emmy award-winning television commentator. He going to be all right. I wish he didn't cry, though. I really wish he didn't cry. It ain't got nothing to do with his manhood. He's a brother. They hurt him. 11 years on the job, Art. They hurt him. They wanted to hurt him. I just wish he would have done it in private because I don't want to see people trying to make a joke of my brother. But I support Ryan Clark, and I wish the best for him, and I wish the best for Roland Martin as well. He'll survive it. He just got to stay focused. It'll pass by. It'll pass by. But allegedly, Art, they said the girl who did this to Roland Martin, she did this to other celebrities. So allegedly, there's a ring of women going around here getting in with black celebrity men, taking pictures of them in uncompromising positions, thongs and G-strings, and putting them out on the internet unless they get paid, I guess. I don't know if she wanted money or status or what, but you got to be careful out here, man, because you got people who would do anything for a dollar. You got people who would do anything for a dollar. And she probably wove her way into Roland Martin's confidence, you know, because I've been through situations like that. Nothing like this, okay? But I've been in situations too. You just got to be careful, man. You got to be really, but I'm not married. I'm unmarried. He's married, you know. And then some people are really beating up on Roland Martin because he's kind of been judgmental, Art. Roland Martin has been judgmental of people. And when you don't support the Democratic Party and vote for them Democrats who don't do nothing for white people, he kind of dig into you a little bit. He could be a little bit too judgmental. And I think that's why people really clapping at him hard. Like, I'm not judgmental of people. I just stand on my square, right? But he's pretty judgmental, almost come off like a pastor himself. And I think that's why a lot of people are really digging into him right now. But he ain't break no law. He ain't touch no kids. You know what I mean? He ain't take advantage of no women. From what they say, him and his wife are going to work through this. Shout out to her. You know what I mean? He'll pass it, but it can't happen again. He can't go through this again, Art, because it will affect his financial relationship with the Democratic Party plantation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that, man. I mean, the last thing you want to do is
Yes, sir.
respond, man. That wouldn't be a good idea. This Howard University situation, what's the deal with that?
Howard University, Art, they are in hot water right now because allegedly they dropped 500 incoming freshmen from their enrollment. And according to many of those black freshmen who were supposed to be students at Howard University, they didn't even find out that they were being dropped until the day they got dropped. And many of them say they didn't even find out that they had to pay, I think it was 50% of their remaining bill, Art, until the deadline. They found out on the day the money was due that they had to pay off the other 50% of their bill. And I think this was so wrong. I think this was so wrong, Art. These students were looking forward to being students on Howard University's campus. They needed more time to get their financial aid together. They needed more time to get their money together. Howard University did not communicate effectively with a lot of them. They didn't give them enough time post-announcement to get their money right, and they dropped 500 incoming freshmen, Art. 200 managed to get back enrolled. 200 managed to get back enrolled, but the other 300, Art, are still unenrolled, and I'm very disappointed in Howard University doing this to our young people. I'm very disappointed in Howard University doing this to our young people. This was wrong. Howard University has $1 billion endowment, Art. They have $1 billion endowment. Why couldn't you give those children a few more weeks? You didn't need that money. Art, Howard don't need that money. They federally chartered. They get money from the federal government all the time. They have $1 billion endowment. They were not hurting for that money. Some of the students say that they over-enrolled on purpose, Art, to see who would pay and then drop the ones who didn't. Some students are saying that they overbooked They didn't have enough freshman beds in the dormitory for all of those students. Either way, the students should not have been responsible for bearing, they should not have had to bear the brunt of this bad decision made by Howard University administration. Art, this was wrong. You know, my cousin, the great Frederick Douglass, he was the first black trustee at Howard University. Not only was the Honorable Frederick Douglass the first black trustee at Howard University, he is the longest serving trustee in Howard University history. Frederick Douglass served as trustee of Howard University from 1871 until his death in 1895. And check it out, Art, in 1875, Frederick Douglass was nominated to be the president of Howard University, and he turned it down. They wanted Frederick Douglass to become the president of Howard University in 1875, but he turned it down. And I'm sure if he was here right now, he would be very disappointed at what Howard University did to drop those children like that with a couple weeks before school starting. The first day for class is Marcus Garvey's birthday, Monday, August the 17th. That's the first day of class, Art. They should not have done them children like that. It was wrong. I can't believe that the Democratic Party didn't step in for them children. Kamala Harris should have paid for their tuition. The Democratic Party should have paid for their tuition. Barack Obama should have paid for their tuition. Since they always want black people to vote for the Democratic Party, why didn't they help them kids stay in that school? What did the Congressional Black Caucus do? They right up the street. What did the Congressional Black Caucus do for them 300 black children who got unenrolled from Howard? You know what they did? They did nothing. That's what they did. They did nothing. And I have my suspicions, Art, as to why they did this. You know why? Howard University has one of the lowest percentages of black freedmen students of all HBCUs. Let me say this again, Art. Howard University has one of the smallest percentages of students who are descendants of African freedmen in this country. I believe there's a possibility that what they did to them 500 students was an experiment for all HBCUs. They dropped them from their enrollment, Art, because they wanted to see how the public would respond to hundreds of incoming freshmen being dropped from the enrollment of an HBCU. And why do I think they want to do this, Art? They're trying to turn a lot of these HBCUs into predominantly minority institutions. Not black, Art, minority. Asians, Arabs, East Indians, Latinos. They want to turn these HBCUs into minority serving institutions. And I think they dropped them students on purpose, Art, to make room for other non-white, non-black students. They dropped them to make room for other non-black, non-white students. This is what I allege, Art. I still got to find the proof. But Howard has the lowest American African black freedmen enrollment, one of the lowest of all the HBCUs. A lot of their black students are immigrants. I don't have a problem with that. They still my family. But Howard was started to educate the children of the enslaved, the descendants of the enslaved. I don't have a problem with my continental African and Caribbean African and Central and South American and British and Canadian and Australian African being students. I don't have a problem. But you cannot ignore the children for whom these colleges were established. That's what I think this was about, Art. I think they are testing different ways to shut black children out of HBCUs, and they're starting with Howard University because it's the most popular, it's the closest to the government, and therefore it is the most governmentally controlled HBCU in the country. Remember, Howard University is the #1 FBI agent recruiting HBCU in the country. I love Howard. I love Howard, but I think there's some shady things going on behind the scenes. I think we need to look a little bit closer at this move by Howard University to drop 500 incoming freshmen and only take 200 of them back.
Definitely. Definitely sounds shady. The Haitians and Trump. Do you know anything about that?
Donald Trump, at the end of June, I think it was, Art, eliminated temporary protection status for the Haitian brothers and sisters. Temporary protected status, Art, is a status you get when you can't go back to your home country because it's not safe. It's too volatile. Social unrest, civil war, disease, whatever the case may be, you get temporary protected status. Donald Trump ended it for our Haitian brothers and sisters, and the Supreme Court backed them up, Art. And I'm sick and tired of the Haitians being mistreated in this country. I'm sick and tired of the Haitians being mistreated in this country, Art. It's wrong. If it wasn't for Haiti, America would be 1/4 of the size she is right now. If it wasn't for Haiti, America would be 1/4 of the size she is right now. And I'm disappointed in us as American Africans, the descendants of African freedmen in America, the Dafa, because we should be working closely with Haiti, Art. Black America missed a very big opportunity to have some land of our own. Remember, the Haitian Constitution, going back to 1804, said any black person who can make it to Haiti, if you can manage to get out of that slavery and get to Haiti, you are one of us. You are a citizen of this country, Art. That's what Haiti did for us. We have not replicated that. Remember, it was the Haitians who inspired, partly, I believe, the Nat Turner War and the Gabriel Prosser Rebellion and the Denmark Vesey Rebellion. That was the Haitians, and the German Coast Uprising in New Orleans. I believe they inspired that as well. Remember Martin Delany, the grandfather of Pan-Africanism, who came up with the phrase Africa for the Africans that Marcus Garvey borrowed and extended. Martin Delany named his son Toussaint L'Ouverture Delany. Toussaint L'Ouverture Delany. So the Haitian influence on Pan-Africanism, the Haitian influence on the black rebellions all throughout the Western Hemisphere can never be overstated, Art. And I just think we have not done enough to collaborate with our Haitian brothers and sisters to make Haiti a little Africa, Art. Haiti should be little Africa in the West. It should be a place where the American Africans can come. From Canada down to Mexico, Australia, we should be able to go to Haiti, and that could be our African country in the Western Hemisphere. It's not too late, Art. It's not too late, but we got to get serious. We should be helping Haiti. We should be building schools and banks and hospitals there so we can move over there and be surrounded by all black people every day. Haiti could have been Black America's paradise, Art. Haiti could have been Black America's paradise, and we dropped the ball. The Supreme Court, Donald Trump wanted to end birthright citizenship, Art. He said birthright citizenship was for the descendants of slaves. That is true. That is absolutely true. It came out of the 14th Amendment. He wanted to end it in order to stop immigrants who came to America from having children, because once they have a child, Art, it gets difficult to separate them from their child. It gets difficult being able to send the parents back to their native country and keep the children here. Then they end up in sex trafficking and part of the Epstein scandal and so forth and so on. So Donald Trump said, if we can stop birthright citizenship, it'll be easier for us to send these illegal immigrants back home. And the Supreme Court disagreed with him one of the few times, Art, the Supreme Court has disagreed with Donald Trump this term. This is one of the few times. And you know why they did it? Answer is real simple, Art. If you get rid of birthright citizenship, which means only native-born whites and the descendants of enslaved Africans can be citizens, how do you replace black people, Art? You cannot replace black people if you don't allow immigrants to come here and reproduce, period. The reason the Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump is they're looking at this thing long-term, Art. They say if the only people who have birthright citizenship are the descendants of the enslaved Africans and native-born white people, how the hell are we ever going to get rid of black people then? We need the immigrants here. We need the Latinos here. We need the Chinese and the Arabs and the East Indians and the Mexicans. We need them here to have babies so they can take jobs from black people. We need them to have babies so they can reproduce with self-hating black people. We need them to have babies so they can take the neighborhoods from black people and take the college seats from black people. You got to have immigrants in America to replace black people, Art. If you don't bring immigrants in America to replace black people, you won't be able to get rid of us. And that's why the Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's attempt to eliminate birthright citizenship. It's not good for the Negro elimination campaign.
Jay-Z, I didn't get your point of view on his partnership with Target and his comments on Kaepernick. How did you feel about that personally?
Um, Here's how I see it. First of all, he shouldn't have brought Colin Kaepernick into it. He should have left Colin Kaepernick out, especially when we found out that what he alleged to be true about Colin Kaepernick signing a non-disclosure, non-compete was not true, allegedly. So I don't think he should have mentioned Colin Kaepernick to save himself. That was kind of corny. As far as the Target boycott, Art, I'm a little mixed on that. You know why? Black people are shopping in Target again. Jamal Bryant called off the Target boycott way before Jay-Z's anniversary album came out. Pastor Jamal Bryant ended the Target boycott. It was over. Now, I do understand, Art, that there were some sisters who decided to keep it on. But once Pastor Jamal Bryant ended the Target boycott, from what I saw, black people returned to Target. Black people returned to Target. So for people to get mad at Jay-Z for having that contract with Target for the Reasonable Doubt album, when Pastor Jamal Bryant had publicly said Target had met the terms of the boycott, which I believe was a what, $2 billion investment in black businesses. And I criticized Pastor Jamal Bryant because I didn't feel that we saw enough evidence to prove Target had met their pledge to black businesses, right? I didn't see no proof I still don't see no proof where Target had met its $2 billion pledge to black businesses. I never saw that. And so I was a little critical of Pastor Jamal Bryant because I didn't see any proof to justify him calling off the boycott, but he called it off, Art. He called it off. Now the sisters continue to run with it, fine. But once the pastor said it was over, most black people went back to Target. So I can't really fault Jay-Z for going through Target when the boycott had been called off. It's kind of hard. Now, if Pastor was still on the boycott, Art, then I say, yeah, this was wrong. But if it was called off, how can I blame him? That's where I'm at with it. Now, do I think the white power structure made Jay-Z work with Target so they can recoup some of the money they lost through the boycott? I think that could be possible. I could see the white power structure telling Jay-Z, we need you to do this in order to help Target recoup some of the money that they lost during the boycott. I could definitely see that. He's at that level where he kind of got to do what they tell him to do. He's a billionaire. I don't think we have a single black billionaire in America who ain't going to do what they're told to do, right? But can I fault him? I can't, because Pastor Jamal Bryant had already called off the boycott.
I don't know if you know, but you know Keefe D, his trial, it starts Monday, right?
It starts Monday. As far as the Keefe D trial go, I'm just going to say this. Who's ever responsible for the death of Tupac Shakur should be held accountable for it. Whoever is responsible for the death of Notorious B.I.G. should be held accountable for it. Whoever is responsible for the death of Nolan Wells should be held accountable for it. Who's ever responsible for the death of Tasia Fortune and Trey Reed should be held accountable. Black life ain't cheap. And we got to stop letting black life be considered cheap. So I just hope who's ever responsible is held responsible. Tupac Shakur is my favorite rapper of all time. Everybody knows that. And I pray for justice to be served in that case.
Dr. Umar, another great interview, very insightful, a great interview like always, man. Before we end it, let the people know what you got going on, where they can find you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, please donate to the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. School been ready since February. We still fighting to get our final building inspection so we can start decorating and getting ready. Unfortunately, it looks like, Art, we're going to waste the whole year because the school was ready in February. We almost in September. It looks like we're going to waste the whole year, fighting to get our school open because of the animosity and the hatred that the building inspector and his superiors have for me. But we ain't going to quit. We're going to keep on pushing. Make sure you make your donations. PayPal.me/FDMG Academy. If you need to reach me, 215-989-9858. Do not call me, text me. I do not answer the phone. You will never get me on the phone. 215-989-9858. Text me. I will be in Jamaica, Keynote and Garvey Day, August the 17th. Cincinnati, Ohio, August the 20th. Nat Turner Land, August the 21st. Columbia, South Carolina, August the 13th. Newark, New Jersey, August the 15th. I will be in Ireland, September 3rd. I will be in Sweden in October. If you need a list of my upcoming speaking events, just shoot me a text. Detroit, Michigan, this Saturday, Shrine of the Black Madonna. Hit me up. Prince of Pan-Africanism@gmail.com. We spell Africa with a K. Prince of Pan-Africanism@gmail.com. We spell Africa with a K. Peace and Pan-Africanism.